Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. But he hadn't expected the 2 magicians' first meeting would occur in an ordinary roadside noodle shop, and by coincidence, they would be sitting at the same table. However, it was clear that the other party did not recognize him. This was quite interesting. Not long after Roy invited Oko Aozaki to sit down, the nearby Shiki recognized some unusualness. Roy's special attention towards Oko Aozaki, even if it was just a few glances in secret, was enough to catch Shiki's eye. A very pretty girl, and quite young. If she were outside, she would undoubtedly be the object of desire for most men. However, for this guy, it was evident that he didn't just notice her beauty, which was why he gave her special attention. So, who is she? Shiki, sitting to Roy's left, extended her finger like a pen and began writing in Roy's palm. Is she also a Magus? It felt a bit ticklish. There was a tingling sensation in his palm. This was Roy's first impression, but seeing Shiki's serious face, he stifled a laugh and then retaliated by writing slowly on Shiki's leg with his finger. Tuko's sister. Eh? Is she the sister that Tuko talks about every day? So, the enemy that Tuko is looking for is this girl in front of him? Looking closely, she indeed bore some resemblance to Tuko. This surprised Shiki and she wanted to continue writing in Roy's palm, but he grabbed her hand. Feeling her palm suddenly gripped, the warmth of his large hand transmitted to her small hand, making Shiki's face flush slightly. She quickly pulled her hand away from his grip, pretending to be angry as she lightly slapped the back of Roy's hand. But she didn't use much strength. To this, Roy didn't show any unusual reaction, he just raised an eyebrow and then withdrew his hand. This little exchange between the two did not go unnoticed by Oko Aozaki, or rather, she didn't care about it. In her eyes, this kind of interaction was more akin to playful banter between siblings, lovers, or good friends. Siblings, huh? What a close relationship. Seeing their way of getting along, she couldn't help but feel a bit envious. If she hadn't had so many unpleasant encounters with her sister back then, would she have had the chance to interact with her like that? Impossible, such a thing was simply not feasible, right? After all, her sister was such a terrible person. After thinking aimlessly for a while and feeling the warmth of the cup in her palm, she finally came to her senses and thanked the kind person. Thank you. Although most of the rumors about her were negative, she was always polite to those who helped her. By the way, this kind person really did have a rather special aura. Though she had noticed it just now, upon closer observation, it felt even more distinct. This uniqueness didn't stem from superficial features like appearance or clothing but existed in a deeper realm. If she had to describe it, it would be an influence emanating from his aura. It was as if he was deliberately controlling his presence in a very special balance. But it didn't seem forced. This remarkably balanced aura, apart from her good friend who lived with her, she had only seen in elderly people of great renown during her travels. If she had to put it into words, it was a state of self-balance, close to a return to simplicity. It felt similar to acting according to one's true nature. Could it be that this young man, who appeared to be in his 20s, was actually some wise sage who had comprehended knowledge, or perhaps a martial arts master who had mastered the secrets of physical balance? No way, he looked so young. In any case, driven by curiosity, Oko Aozaki couldn't help but study him. However, after observing for a while, she gave up, as her eyes couldn't discern anything unusual. He just looked like an exceptionally ordinary person with a unique aura. If only she could shake hands with him and quietly use her magical powers to probe a bit, she should be able to uncover the source of this peculiarity. But proposing a handshake? Wouldn't that make it seem like she was trying to flirt with him? Thinking of that scene, even for her, who was usually straightforward, it felt a bit odd. What's wrong? Is there something strange on my face? After being scrutinized for a while, Roy, who had long sensed it, looked at Oko Aozaki with a puzzled expression. Eh? Did he notice already? What sharp intuition! Peeking so quickly, Oko Aozaki was a bit surprised, but more so was her desire to appear nonchalant, so she immediately began to explain. Not at all, I'm just a bit curious. Curious? Yeah, I'm just curious about what kind of work you do. Oh? Why do you ask that? Roy smiled and inquired. Your aura is quite impressive, very similar to a friend of mine. Plus, judging by your accent, you're not a local from Misaki Town, so I felt a bit curious. Her spoken language was a mix of Japanese learned later, and while she had no problem communicating, there was still a hint of awkwardness. This wasn't the first time someone had pointed it out. I'm indeed not from Misaki Town, and I'm not even from this country. I'm from a very distant place. A foreigner? Exactly, although you don't know how precise your words are. I ended up here due to some changes in my life and have been living here for about a year now, mostly residing in Fuyuki City. So, are you here for tourism? As soon as she said this, Oko Ozaki suddenly regretted her previous actions. It was clearly improper etiquette to scrutinize a kind person she was meeting for the first time with such a gaze. However, fortunately, the other party was indeed a nice person and didn't mind her rudeness. Tourism? Although it's indeed a nice city and great for sightseeing, that's not why I'm here. I actually came to this city to look for someone. Looking for someone? Visiting family? Oko Ozaki blinked and couldn't help but feel curious. Do you have friends or relatives living in Misaki Town? Roy shook his head. No, I came here to deal with some troublesome matters and to help a friend find her sister, whom she hasn't seen in many years. Helping a friend find a sister they haven't seen in over a decade. She had seen a storyline like this in a morning drama. The plot probably involved significant changes in the family during childhood, leading to siblings or sisters getting lost, and now, after many years, suddenly learning that the sister was alive, prompting a friend to travel to an unfamiliar city to find her sister after so long. It was surprising that such a tragic story actually occurred in reality. It was truly touching. Just a few short sentences led Oko Ozaki to mentally script a detailed tragic drama. So, she eagerly said, do you need my help in finding her? I actually have quite a few friends in Misaki Town, and I'm sure we can help your friend find her lost sister. Help my friend find her sister? Upon hearing this, and looking at her serious expression, Roy took a sip of water to suppress a smile. No, that won't be necessary, I've already helped her find her sister. Shiki looked at her, a bit speechless. In this situation, she didn't know what expression to wear. What would happen if Tuko Ozaki found out that they were dining with her long-missed sister? Shock, anger, or something else? In any case, her expression would definitely be very interesting. No, thank you for your kind offer, but I don't think it's necessary. I've already helped that friend find her lost sister. Already found her? Is that so? Then that's really good news. Congratulations to your friend. I hope she can reunite with her sister after so many years. As they chatted, their ramen finally arrived. Oko Ozaki took the ramen, tore open the chopsticks, and smiled. We've been chatting for so long without asking your name. Since we've met someone so compatible, let's get to know each other. I'm Oko Ozaki, a local from Misaki Town. If we're friends, just call me Ozaki. Roy. This is Shiki. Hello, Miss Ozaki. Shiki greeted Oko Ozaki. Shiki and Roy. Hearing this, Oko Ozaki looked at them in surprise. Aren't you two siblings? No, we're just friends, and I'm also her guardian. Roy shook his head. However, Miss Ozaki, if possible, could I call you by another name? If I just refer to your surname, it might confuse you with my friend. Easily confused? Does your friend's surname happen to be Ozaki too? Upon hearing this, she suddenly realized that something was off. Oko Ozaki's expression immediately froze, and the chopsticks she was using to hold her ramen slipped from her hands. That's right, she also has the surname Ozaki. Speaking of which, you two do share some resemblance, especially when you smile, it's the same dazzling brightness. Of course, this might just be my imagination. Roy continued, seemingly unaware of Oko Ozaki's increasingly troubled expression as he spoke about that friend. If you don't mind my curiosity, could you tell me about your friend's physical features? If you both share the surname Ozaki, I think we might know each other. Oko Ozaki, with her face almost breaking under pressure, gritted her teeth as she spoke, her tone tinged with a hint of anger. Could it really be that coincidental? Know each other? Of course, you definitely do know each other. If we're talking about physical features, she has so many distinctive traits. However, she has beautiful, long hair that is a deep red like flames, and her eyes are also strikingly pretty. And then there's... With a loud crack, Oko Ozaki was seen holding a pair of chopsticks that had snapped in her grip. What's wrong, Miss Ozaki? You look a bit pale. Is something bothering you? No. I just wasn't holding the chopsticks properly. Prompted by Roy, Oko quickly tossed aside the broken chopsticks and waved her hand, explaining, sorry. I might have gotten a bit too excited. Please continue. It's alright, I'm just glad you're okay, Miss Ozaki. If we're only describing appearances, it might not be precise enough. If you do know her, it's probably more convenient to just say her name. Roy smiled and said, my friend's surname is Ozaki, and her name is... As Roy slowly spoke the name, Oko Ozaki's tense face grew darker, and when she finally heard the name he uttered, the suppressed emotions within her could no longer be contained. Tuko. Crack this time, it was the sound of a ceramic bowl shattering. Chapter 111, 111 Prepare. What kind of joke is this? You ran into Oko today? After a long day, Tuko had just returned to the hotel at night. Before she had the chance to eat the dinner that Roy and the others had brought back, she was startled by the shocking news. Where did you run into Oko? Does she know who you are? You didn't reveal anything about me to her, did you? Hurry, tell me exactly what happened. Tuko immediately stood up from the sofa, forgetting all about eating, and grabbed Roy's shoulders, bombarding him with questions about the situation. You need to sit down and calm down, Tuko. Maintain a Magus's basic composure. Don't lose your cool just because you heard the news about your sister. Don't forget. You are the challenger this time. Hearing Roy's words, Tuko managed to calm herself down a bit. Realizing her outburst, she nodded and let go of his shoulders. Cautiously, she asked, you didn't reveal our situation to Oko, did you? You might be disappointed. Roy shook his head. I've already informed her that you've returned to Misaki Town. Right now, your sister is probably running all over the city looking for you. When I ask a question, does that mean there's a problem? Whose side are you on, anyway? Of course, I'm on your side now. Roy answered lightly. After all, you're my employee, so I'll naturally help you. But you... Tuko tried to say something else but was interrupted by Roy's next words. Relax, Tuko. Even though this is your hometown, don't forget that this city is also the other side's territory. Today, I took Shiki around the city and discovered a lot of interesting things. The Ozaki family's bounded field and at witch's surveillance covered the entire city. If you were trying to hide, that's one thing, but with the way you've been moving, you've definitely already been detected. So why not just be open about it? As he said, even though she had taken precautions, Tuko hadn't fully escaped the detection of the Ozaki family's bounded field, despite her careful concealment. Ever since Oko Ozaki left on her travels, Alice Kuonji had temporarily taken over as the guardian of Misaki Town's ley lines, deploying familiars to monitor potential threats in the city. The phantasmal species golden wolf that Tuko had left behind was naturally one of the main subjects of Alice's surveillance, so her contact with the wolf today did not go unnoticed. Oko Ozaki's return wasn't coincidental either. Recently, Alice Kuonji's familiars had detected many dead apostle presences in Misaki Town. People had started going missing at night, and the church's executors were likely already involved. The city was gripped by fear. There wouldn't be this level of alarm if it were just ordinary dead apostles. But Alice had detected at least 5 dead apostles in the city, and her intuition as a witch told her that this situation wasn't simple. With so many dead apostles appearing at once, they were either plotting something or there was some creature in the city capable of creating dead apostles on a large scale. Given that such a threat could exist in her own city without her detection, the opponent could be a significant figure. Perhaps even one of the dead apostle ancestors. To prepare for the worst, Alice had requested assistance from her close friend, the magician of the fifth magic, Oko Ozaki, which is why I encountered Oko in Misaki Town. However, shortly after Oko's return, her familiars discovered that Tuko had also secretly returned to Misaki Town. She had contacted many old friends in the city and even approached the Golden Wolf residing in the old school building. There was no need to guess what she was planning. Everyone knew Tuko Ozaki's intentions. With her personality, she was definitely gathering strength in the city, preparing to launch an attack when the time was right, catching them off guard. Alice Kuonji even suspected that Tuko had made a deal with the dead apostles to get revenge on them, which explained the increased monster activity in the city. The timing was too coincidental. First the rise in dead apostle activity, then Tuko Ozaki's return. Alice couldn't believe the two weren't connected. Moreover, Alice believed that Tuko was capable of such malevolent actions. That woman was extremely dangerous and unbound by conventional means. If given the chance, she wouldn't hesitate to kill them. She still remembered Tuko's previous attack. If it hadn't been for Shizuki Sujiuru's unexpected strength at the critical moment, both Oko and Alice would have been killed by her. That's why Alice wasn't taking this new development lightly. You're right. That witch already suffered a loss last time, so it's no surprise that she's being more cautious now. Tuko sighed. Knowing that her plan for a surprise attack had failed was to be expected. But it was still a problem. With Alice Kuonji now aware of her moves, that which would undoubtedly set up a tight web around the mansion. Coupled with the monstrous magician of the fifth magic, Oko Ozaki, assaulting their magical stronghold would be difficult. But what could she do now? Even though I knew it was impossible to stay hidden forever, getting discovered this quickly is still a hassle. Tuko shook her head helplessly and asked, so what should we do now? Do we need to come up with a new plan? Reconsider? Why would you think that? Roy smiled and replied, I never planned to use traps and tactics to deal with the magician of the fifth magic and that witch. Since we're all Magus, we should fight with our full strength. Besides, we have more power on our side. Giving them an advantage is just the generosity of the strong. You're not seriously thinking. Tuko widened her eyes as a possibility occurred to her. That's right. I want to challenge the Miss Blue head-on. In a little while, I'll go to the witch's mansion and personally deliver the challenge to your sister. By now, they should be ready. While it's generous to give your opponent time, there's no need to overdo it. The Miss Blue and the witch have had more than enough time. Roy glanced at Tuko, waving his hand lightly as he said, a Magus' best strategy is positional warfare, and the witch is no exception. I've already given them a fair chance. Now is the perfect time to visit. And like I said before, I've saved you a front row seat. Want to join me, Tuko? You're going straight into the witch's workshop? You really are insane, planning to storm a witch's workshop for a fight. But you're right. Even so, we have enough strength to match them. Defeating them outright is also a fine option. At that thought, a smile crept onto Tuko's face. Of course, I'll come along. Let's head out quickly. I can't wait to see my sister. Come on out, Bio. Tuko called out to the room behind her. Yes, Tuko. As soon as the voice fell, a golden figure darted from the depths of the room at incredible speed, appearing beside Tuko Ozaki in a flash. The sudden appearance of the golden figure startled Shiki. Her icy blue eyes gleamed, and she instinctively drew her dagger, ready to strike at the figure. Who are you? This speed, and such stealth. Despite hiding in the room, she hadn't sensed anything earlier. This meant that if the golden figure had harbored any killing intent, she would have been dead in an instant. Don't worry, I'm here. Seeing Shiki's reactive tension, Roy gently grabbed her wrist, stopping her from delivering a deadly strike. Even the top-tier phantasmal beast, the golden wolf, would suffer greatly if cut by the mystic eyes of death perception. Feeling the warmth of Roy's hand, Shiki's restless heart gradually calmed down. Ah, such a terrifying sensation. It instinctively made me feel in danger. The golden figure halted in front of them, revealing its true form. Or rather, the golden wolf had simulated a human appearance and body. It took the form of a beautiful girl with long golden hair, seemingly in her teens, radiating an aura of sunshine and warmth. However, when her eyes fell on Shiki, they were filled with wariness. Her previous words were no joke. The moment Shiki's mystic eyes of death perception activated, she felt her fur stand on end. It was like being stared down by death itself. If she had been hit in a vital spot by this girl, she was certain she would have died. What a terrifying girl. More frightening than Oko ever was. Where had Tuko found such an ally? The young man beside them also felt unusual. Or perhaps, familiar? Bio moved closer to Roy, sniffing a few times before exclaiming in surprise, you have such a pleasant scent. It feels familiar, like I've smelled it before. Could it be that you're one of my kind? One of her kind? You're not human? Shiki looked at Roy in surprise. Of course, I'm human. Don't let your imagination run wild. Roy looked at Bio and then opened his hand, conjuring a warm white glow. Sensing the familiar aura, Bio became even more excited. That's the smell. It's so nice. Sorry, but I'm not your kind. Roy shook his head. Huh? But your aura clearly. As Bio expressed confusion, Roy provided the answer. It's because of the soul. Since your existence is similar to a spiritual being, your body can transform based on circumstances. You don't need a stable physical medium to exist in the material world, you are a universal life form. In the realm of magecraft, you are a high-level life form, a soul that has been materialized. As for me, I'm the magician of the third magic, who controls the domain of materialization of the soul. So it's natural for you to feel a sense of familiarity with me instinctively. Materialization of the soul? I don't really get it, but being a magician means you're as powerful as Oko, right? Bio scratched her head, still looking cheerful as she said, anyway, I like you, Tuko's friend. Let's get acquainted. I used to be Tuko's familiar. You can call me Bio. Nice to meet you. After a brief introduction, Bio became even more affectionate, grabbing onto Roy's arm. Her affection for his aura was akin to a cat responding to catnip, as she nuzzled against him. So comfortable. Honestly, Bio, you should know when to stop. Getting so close to someone else right in front of your master is a bit much, don't you think? It was the first time Tuko had seen Bio so affectionate with someone else, and even she was a bit surprised. She couldn't help but smile wryly. You were never this affectionate with me before. I don't want to. Bio really likes Tuko's friend, and it feels so comfortable holding on to him. Alright. Do as you please. Our contract was terminated a long time ago anyway. But, Bio, what's with this appearance? Didn't you say before that transforming into a human was useless? Even when I asked you to shapeshift, you barely complied. So what's this now? Tuko curiously observed Bio's current form. You mean this appearance? Bio raised her hands and cupped the two heavy mounds on her chest, then replied, the body of a human female is indeed quite inconvenient. However, this form is more suitable for blending into human society. After parting ways with you, I started running a general shop with Sujuru at our old base to make some money. But no customers came. Then Noko suggested I take on this form, saying it would attract more customers. After doing so, a lot of customers really did show up. I got used to it after a while. Ah. Upon hearing Bio's explanation, Tuko massaged her temples and sighed helplessly. Fine, as long as you're happy. It doesn't affect your activities, after all. After patting Bio's soft head, Roy now had a basic understanding of this phantasmal species' personality and abilities. He couldn't help but compliment her. An exceptional familiar. Not only can she shapeshift freely, but she also possesses mobility and magical power rivaling that of an average servant. Her mystery level must be over 3,000 years old, truly deserving the title of a top-tier phantasmal species from the Age of Gods. Hee, thank you for the compliment. But Tuko's friends are amazing too. Not just this girl who makes me feel a deadly danger. Bio can sense that you also have tremendous power. However, Bio still doesn't know your name. Tuko's friend, can you tell me your name? Of course, since we're partners now, aren't we? Yes, we're partners. Roy nodded and then introduced himself. My name is Roy, and this is Shiki. We are both Tuko's friends, just like you. We're here to help her defeat Tuko, so we'll be counting on your assistance as well, Bio. Got it. Bio will protect both Roy and Shiki. The golden wolf, now transformed into a girl, flashed a bright smile, wrapping her arms around the necks of both Shiki and Roy. She seemed genuinely happy. Shiki, though, felt a bit uncomfortable being embraced so casually by Bio. This is way too lacking in boundaries. It looks like you all are getting along well. That's good. We're heading out later. Do you want anything? Maybe some comics or novels? Bringing along such a showy figure would be a hassle, and judging from Bio's words, it seemed she had a good relationship with Tuko and Alice. Without the contract binding her, Tuko wasn't entirely sure if Bio might switch sides during the fight. So, Tuko didn't plan to take Bio along. Leaving her at the base was enough. She already had more than enough firepower on her side. When the time came, she could call Bio for backup. Toys, comics? Sujuru already bought me a lot of those, so there's nothing I really need. Oh, but if you could bring me a hamburger when you return, that would be great. One of those really big ones with lots of toppings. So, she just wants a burger. Got it. Tuko Ozaki smiled slightly. But you haven't changed a bit, Bio. She still preferred food over toys. As long as her food needs were met, she was easy to satisfy. Alright, since everything's in order, let's help you resolve your grudge with the magician of the fifth magic before dealing with the dead apostle princess. Seeing that the time had come, Roy called for Tuko and Shiki to prepare for departure. But before we make our visit, we need to take care of a few small preparations first. You know what I mean, don't you, Tuko? Of course, just like we discussed last night. Tuko Ozaki smiled knowingly. Let's go, boss. I can't wait to see the ridiculous look on Aoko's face when she panics. Chapter 112, 112 Declaration around 9 p.m. The Kuonji Mansion. So, where is my dinner, Aoko? The fairy tale witch, Alice Kuonji, who had been busy all day, quietly gazed at Aoko Ozaki with a calm, somewhat indifferent tone. Huh? Alice, is now really the time to be asking about dinner? Faced with her close friend's calmness, Aoko Ozaki felt a little frustrated. Of all times, you're still thinking about dinner? My terrifying sister is back. Aoko knew all too well how difficult her sister was to deal with, and the man she encountered today was clearly no ordinary person either. Even with her tracking skills, he easily lost her after just a few streets. His movements were so well hidden that she searched half the city and found no trace of him. Her sister had obviously come back prepared this time. Calm down, Aoko. Whenever you encounter trouble, you lose your composure. You've always been rash like this, Ever since we were kids. It seems that's one flaw you still haven't managed to fix. The Black Witch closed her book and looked at her friend with a touch of exasperation. Actually, I knew about Tuco's return even before you did. WWW what? When? Recently, this city has been teeming with the ones lurking in the shadows. I didn't expect that even Tuco would take this chance to return. The intelligence came from the Song of Sixpence earlier this morning. Huh? Why didn't you tell me? What if I had run into her in Misaki Town today? The thought of the young man she met at the noodle shop today, someone who claimed to be Tuco's friend, filled Aoko with a sense of relief, as though she had narrowly avoided disaster. If Tuco had shown up at that shop, wouldn't they have run into each other face to face? Just imagining such a terrifying scenario made her feel uneasy. Though it had been over 10 years since they last saw each other, and their sisterly conflict should have faded by now, Aoko was sure that if they met, neither of them would be able to resist a fight, and things would spiral out of control. In response to Aoko's protest, the witch simply let out a cold laugh. Hey. I did tell you this morning, but you were too busy playing video games in your room to hear me. Huh? Aoko blinked, stunned by Alice's words. Did I? Maybe. Possibly. Okay, that could have happened. Reflecting on the past few days, Aoko realized she had spent most of her time either sleeping, wandering around town, or playing video games. Ignoring Alice's message wasn't entirely out of the realm of possibility. Her expression quickly turned awkward as she apologized without hesitation. My bad, Alice. I shouldn't have been so focused on shopping and gaming. I'm really sorry. As long as you understand. But there's no need to worry too much. Seeing Aoko apologize, Alice Kuonji's stiff attitude softened, though her tone remained as indifferent as ever. Thanks to those lurking in the shadows, I've already placed extensive bounded fields around the mansion over the past few days. And with my familiars patrolling, even if Tuco and that golden wolf of hers attack, they won't be able to. Boom. Before Alice could finish her sentence, a loud explosion echoed from outside the mansion. She immediately sensed that the many bounded fields she had painstakingly set up were being triggered at a rapid pace. Someone or something was charging toward them at incredible speed. And they weren't slowing down at all? Was it the golden wolf? No, it couldn't be. Alice knew the wolf's abilities well, and this was beyond its capacity. How is this possible? Whoever, or whatever, was effortlessly breaking through her meticulously crafted magical defenses had to be some kind of monster. Even if two Tuco Ozaki's combined forces, they couldn't possibly pull this off. What in the world was going on? As Alice's expression grew grim, Aoko also began to worry. She quickly stepped forward to ask what was happening. What's wrong, Alice? What's going on? It's not just my defenses. The Ozaki family's grand bounded field has been broken as well. All of Alice's previous composure vanished. Her eyes widened, and her pale face turned livid with shock and anger. The situation was so dire that even Aoko quickly realized something was amiss. Alice, you don't mean the grand bounded field covering Misaki Town? Yes. The enemy somehow disabled the key points around the city and the mansion, then shattered the grand bounded field covering all of Misaki Town. With 2 of the key points destroyed, the grand bounded field has been weakened by about 30%. As she spoke, Alice checked the extent of the damage, her expression growing more and more severe. The enemy didn't bother gradually dismantling the bounded fields to gain entry into her magical workshop. Instead, they attacked the grand bounded field directly. Were they trying to force them out to confront them? How could something like this even happen? The grand bounded field protecting Misaki Town was set up by the Ozaki family's grandfather, using pentagrams as focal points and gathering the city's ley line to monitor and protect against magical threats. Alice had extended the grand bounded field, connecting it to her mansion to create an additional protective bounded field. As long as the ley line manager remained in the area, she could use the mansion's workshop to tap into the land's magical energy and fight off intruders. But the enemy clearly knew this, so they targeted the key points first, weakening the bounded field from outside to trigger a chain reaction of small bounded field collapses, nullifying their advantage as ley line managers. Only someone like Tuco Ozaki could have known the positions of the grand bounded field's key points and the flow of the ley lines. She actually went this far. Realizing the possibility, Aoko's anger flared. She never imagined her sister would be so insane, going as far as to destroy the Ozaki family's century-old grand bounded field just to confront her, even denying her role as the ley line manager. Didn't she realize the chaos this could bring to the city if the grand bounded field, which monitored and regulated magical activity, was destroyed? She's completely lost her mind. All of this, just for something so petty. I won't let you get away with this, Tuco. Clenching her fists, Aoko growled through gritted teeth, her overflowing magical power betraying her fury. Compared to Oko's hot temper, Alice Kuonji remained much calmer, still trying to analyze the situation and find a way to fix it. Calm down, Oko. This is more complicated than you think. Even if someone knew the locations of the key points, breaking the grand bounded field was supposed to be impossible. To do so meant fighting against the ley lines of all of Misaki Town, which required immense magical power. Yet, the enemy had done it. And in a matter of moments. Alice couldn't understand how, but she suspected there was more to this than they knew. Now that their ley line-powered advantage was gone, they would have to rely on their own strength to confront the enemy. Seeing her friend struggling to contain her anger, Alice cautioned her. Oko, this enemy is no joke. Tuko has clearly prepared for this. You need to be extra careful. I know, Alice. Strangely, I'm not losing my composure because of my anger. In fact, I've never been more calm. Oko said slowly, I can't wait to crush my sister and her lackeys together. Wait, she's not calm at all. Alice Kuonji rarely showed signs of anxiety, but she couldn't help but feel worried. This time, the opponent wasn't just Tuko Ozaki, nor was it the usual trivial matters. The enemy's strength far surpassed what they'd imagined. Although she believed in Oko's abilities, could she really win in her current irrational state? Or was she falling right into the enemy's trap? Tuko's ruthlessness wasn't something to be taken lightly. The sixth sense of the witch buzzed in her mind, an unprecedented feeling of unease and fear weighing on her heart. Alice, what should we do now? Should we take the initiative and attack head-on, or? Though furious to the core, Oko Ozaki, the protector of Misaki Town's ley lines, understood the gravity of the situation. At times like this, she knew she had to remain calm, so she decided to listen to the advice of her close friend. No, Oko. We don't yet know the opponent's exact strength or numbers. If we rush out to face them, we'll definitely fall into Tuko's trap. From the looks of it, they don't seem to be planning to storm the mansion directly to fight us, which means we still have time. Go stand guard near the mansion's gate to prevent any intruders from entering. In the meantime, I'll use the Song of Sixpence and the Mirror of Slumber to figure out the enemy's movements. As she spoke, Alice Kuonji waved her arm, conjuring a large, ornate blue magic mirror within the mansion. Understood. Oko nodded. However, just as she was about to use the magic mirror to trace the enemy's actions, an untimely voice reached their ears. No need to search, Miss Witch. I'm already inside. Accompanied by a gentle male voice, the figure of Roy silently appeared, sitting in a chair within the mansion. It was the same spot Oko Ozaki had been sitting moments before. The scene shown in the magic mirror was none other than the interior of the mansion. Seeing that the enemy had bypassed her defenses and entered so stealthily, Alice Kuonji's face darkened. Uninvited guests are not welcome here. Oko, recognizing the intruder's face, slightly widened her eyes and pointed at Roy in surprise. You're the guy from the noodle shop earlier today. That's right, Miss Oko, we meet again. Roy smiled, stood up, and bowed to her. I was able to enter the mansion so easily thanks to you. Thanks to me? Oko was confused by his words. Could he have followed her to find Alice's mansion? But that didn't make sense. Tuko surely knew the mansion's location, and as Tuko's ally, it wouldn't have been a secret to him. Roy didn't answer directly. Instead, he waved his hand, and a pale blue butterfly emerged from Oko's bag, fluttering around the room. A familiar? Alice Kuonji's eyes widened in shock, and Oko's expression turned grim. You put a familiar in my bag? Yes, I initially wanted to test it, but I didn't expect that, in your rush to return, you didn't even notice. As a result, my familiar reached the mansion without any obstacles, thanks to you. I really appreciate it, you saved me quite a bit of effort. You bastard. How dare you use me? So, you're the helper Tuko called in? Realizing she'd been tricked, Oko was enraged and prepared to charge at him. Roy, however, didn't evade. He simply smiled calmly, watching her. Calm down, Oko. Alice stopped her. But Alice, It was her fault. All because she panicked upon hearing about Tuko. She had lost her composure, allowing the enemy to take advantage of the situation. She should have been more cautious. Knowing that he was Tuko's ally, why did she treat him like an ordinary person? If she had checked more carefully before returning, this wouldn't have happened. It was all her fault. A variety of emotions. Shame, guilt, anger. Flashed across Oko's face. No, calm down, Oko. I don't blame you. The fact that his familiar managed to avoid my detection and enter the mansion is partly my responsibility. Now isn't the time to shift blame. Alice called out to her, then shot a cold glance at Roy and spoke in a frosty tone. Now that you've entered the mansion, intruder, what do you want? Already analyzed the situation and formulated a countermeasure so quickly? She truly deserved Tuko's praise. A true pure-blooded fairy tale witch. Roy acknowledged Alice's quick thinking with a nod of approval. Although it was impolite to barge in, my purpose today isn't just a visit. I come on behalf of someone else. Miss Oko, I am here to declare war on you. Declare war? Oko's face darkened. You're here on behalf of my sister, aren't you? That's correct. I am here as Tuko's representative. Roy nodded. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Roy, the new magician of the third magic. I challenge you, Oko Ozaki, the magician of the fifth magic. The duel will be at midnight tonight, at the old school building. I hope you will be there on time. Third magic. As soon as they heard this, Oko and Alice caught on to the critical detail. No wonder he had the power to break through the grand bounded field. This young man was also a magician, just like Oko. Tuko had actually found another magician to help her. Their wariness grew deeper. It seems the two ladies aren't too happy about my arrival. Sensing their wariness, Roy wasn't offended. Instead, he smiled gently. It's fine if you don't show up. I'm merely extending an invitation, as a gesture of respect. I don't just want to help Tuko, I genuinely wish to face the legendary Magic Blue in battle. However, if you don't come, be prepared for the fight to happen here in the mansion next time. With that, Roy clapped his hands lightly and prepared to leave. Wait. You broke the grand bounded field, infiltrated Alice's mansion, and even tricked me. I won't let you leave so easily. Oko blocked his way, her hand turning into a gun, with blue magic bullets gathering at her fingertips, aimed at Roy. Oh? You want to fight here and now? Seeing Oko's rising magical power and battle stance, Roy smiled warmly. If you wish to fight, I'm always ready. But I advise you to lower your magical energy, Miss Oko. This is not a good place for battle. He glanced at the silent Alice. I'm sure Miss Witch would agree with me. Alice lowered her head in silence. This mansion was her most treasured place. There was no way she would allow them to fight here. Seeing this, Oko's hand, which was gathering magic bullets, began to waver. Of course, you two could join forces and try to take me down here. But it would be meaningless. The me you see here is just a projection, materialized using a familiar. Roy's words cut deep. And I doubt Miss Witch would want to see her beloved mansion reduced to rubble because of a fight, right? Despicable. Using the mansion to threaten Alice. I thought you were a good person. Oko frowned deeply, her voice filled with anger. After a brief internal struggle, she finally lowered her hand. As Roy said, he was just a projection. Destroying him wouldn't change anything, and Alice cherished this mansion more than anything. She couldn't let anyone, not even herself, damage it. A wise decision. Seeing Oko lower her hand, Roy secretly sighed in relief. He only wanted to fulfill his promise to Tuko and challenge the magician of the fifth magic. He didn't want to go too far or destroy anyone's treasured belongings. He didn't want innocent people to suffer because of their personal conflicts. If Oko had insisted on fighting, he would have cancelled his projection to prevent the battle. I apologize, Ms. Oko. For the sake of fairness in the duel, I had no choice. If you're unhappy, you can discuss it with your sister later. Once everything is settled, I will personally come to apologize. We have our own positions to uphold, but that doesn't make us enemies. He then turned to the silent Alice, bowed slightly, and sincerely apologized. Likewise, Ms. Witch, I apologize for my rude intrusion today. I am willing to offer compensation afterward. But I must offer a piece of advice. I hope you will refrain from interfering in the upcoming battle between magicians, for your own safety. As he finished speaking, Roy's body began to dissolve into blue particles of light, and soon he disappeared, leaving behind two girls staring at each other in the mansion. Chapter 113 Oko Ozaki Misaki Town, old school building near midnight. Returning to this place that held deep memories from over 10 years ago, Tuko Ozaki couldn't help but feel a bit sentimental. Leaning against the railing, she lit a slim cigarette and exhaled slowly. With her was Bio, the golden wolf, who had a burger in its mouth while fiddling with a gaming console Tuko had just bought. Shiki, who had also come along, quietly spun the mithril dagger that Roy had gifted her, gazing out at the city's nightscape. She was eagerly anticipating the spectacle that was about to unfold. Finally, I'll get to see what this guy is truly capable of. Up on the high platform, Roy blinked briefly before leaping down. Is everything settled? Tuko asked as he approached from the platform. It's done. The challenge letter has been delivered to her in your name, and I've given them about 2 hours to prepare their strategy. Leaving them 2 hours to get ready? How generous of you. If it were me, I'd give Oko hell, making her rush here without a moment's rest. Tuko said with a sneer, exhaling another puff of smoke. But this works too. Oko always loses her composure when faced with unexpected situations. You've stirred up quite the storm by now, she's probably panicking. It was necessary. Leaving that big bounded field intact would have made the upcoming battle and the hunt for the dead apostles a troublesome affair. With a huge bounded field looming over them, those sneaky creatures would never show themselves easily. Oh? Then why not use the Ozaki's bounded field to track them down? We've already taken control of half of it. With your skills, you should be able to take over the whole thing with some effort, right? It's not worth it. My opponents aren't just regular dead apostles, I'm dealing with their ancestors and possibly even their princesses. We don't yet know how many are involved in this. At their level, if they're serious about hiding, the Ozaki family's bounded field won't detect them. Breaking through that superficial veil and going straight for their essence is the best option. Roy explained casually, glancing at Tuko. The structure of this bounded field is complicated, but as long as I don't damage its framework, restoring and taking control of it isn't too difficult. Once this is over, I'll repair the bounded field exactly as it was. If this is out of guilt, it's unnecessary. After all, that witch will definitely find a way to handle it afterward. Whether you fix the bounded field or not, it'll still be Oko and that witch cleaning up the mess in the end. Tuko's tone, like her words, was laced with indifference. After wandering for so many years, she had long since lost any attachment to this city she once called home. Roy merely shook his head slightly, choosing not to respond to her remark. Are you sure you don't need our help in the upcoming battle? You really plan to fight Oko one-on-one? Yes, fighting the magician of the fifth magic is a rare opportunity. I'm looking forward to it. You're only interested in the fifth magic, aren't you? Tuko snorted lightly. I didn't expect this side of you. But what about the witch? If you're planning to duel Oko, Alice Kuonji won't just stand by and do nothing. While dealing with her wouldn't be too hard for someone like you, it would still be troublesome if her witchcraft interfered during the fight. Roy nodded slightly, acknowledging her point. Indeed, if left unchecked, she could become a problem. I fully recognize the power that the pure-blooded witch possesses. Do you want me to handle her? Tuko offered, although I can't beat that monstrous little sister of mine, I am still one of the highest-ranked Magus, granted a grand rank. Dealing with the witch wouldn't be an issue. Besides, I've got Bio and Shiki on my side. Even that witch's hound couldn't defeat us. Are we finally getting a turn, Tuko? Bio eagerly poked its head out, looking excited. No need. I've already made arrangements for the witch. When the time comes, you two just need to intercept her. You've made arrangements? You found someone else to help you handle the witch? Tuko asked, surprised. Intercept who? What's he talking about? Bio tilted its head, looking a bit confused, while Tuko followed Roy's gaze toward the distant rooftop. After a moment, she understood and broke into a grin. I see. You've made quite an unexpected move. I bet that witch going to fall right into your trap. Just using a Magus's habits to my advantage. By the way, now that you've met Oko, what do you think of her? She's strong. From the first meeting, you can tell there's something extraordinary about her. She's incredibly gifted. Roy gave his honest assessment without hesitation. Is that so? Seems like she's improved quite a bit since the last time. Hearing Roy's praise for Oko, Tuko felt a pang of frustration. Guess that just makes it even more impossible for me to beat her. Damn magic, it's such a cheat. Miracle powers, after all. If it didn't reach that level, it wouldn't be called a miracle. You're right. It's magic, after all. Tuko mused for a moment before turning to Roy, asking seriously, do you think you can win against her now? I will win. Roy smiled confidently, answering without a trace of doubt. After all, I promised to help you regain your dignity. And I hope your sister quickly adjusts to her battle mode. I want to fight the fully unleashed magician of the fifth magic. You're so full of confidence. Tuko chuckled. Well then, I'll leave it to you, magician of the third magic. Don't die out there. Shiki glazed at Roy and said earnestly. Nah, I'd win. Roy replied with a smile. Compared to Roy and his group calmly preparing at the old school building and waiting for the challengers, over at Alice Kuonji's western-style mansion, the black-haired witch sitting on the sofa was far from calm. The unknown enemy was far too powerful. Not only had they shattered the grand bounded field set up by the Ozaki family's forefather, but they had also trampled over her proud defenses. To top it off, while she was contemplating countermeasures, the enemy used magical projection to silently infiltrate the mansion. This series of actions had dealt a devastating blow to the witch, leaving her feeling completely humiliated. She had never suffered such a loss in her life. Perhaps out of confidence or maybe the opponent's mercy, the enemy had even revealed their identity to them. The magician of the third magic. The person was a magician like Oko, wielding a miracle of magic. Their power was monstrously overwhelming, as demonstrated by their ability to break and seize control of the grand bounded field. However, their actions were too swift, and their ability to suppress their magical energy was too perfect. As a result, the bounded field surrounding Misaki Town had only detected Tuko, completely missing this major threat. This allowed the enemy to approach the mansion unnoticed, quickly shattering a key pillar and exposing a flaw in the grand bounded field. By the time they realized what was happening, it was already too late to stop the damage. There were 5 key points in the grand bounded field. The one destroyed near the mansion yesterday was just one of them. The eastern pillar has also been taken, and the others have sustained varying degrees of damage. That's how the entire grand bounded field was broken so quickly. Otherwise, with the quality of the bounded field set by our grandfather, it wouldn't have been possible for anyone to destroy it so easily, even if they were a Magus. This suggests there was an insider involved, and it's been part of a well-planned scheme. After completing her analysis, Alice Kuonji sighed softly. Her words almost directly implied that the insider was Tuko Ozaki. This explanation made Aoko even more agitated. Tuko. That woman is capable of anything. Collaborating with an outsider to destroy our grandfather's legacy. Unforgivable. I understand your feelings. What Tuko has done this time is truly over the line. It's obvious she wants a final, decisive battle with us. Alice Kuonji sighed again. But now we're in real trouble. Even though this is our home turf, we've ended up surrounded and at a disadvantage. Hearing this, Aoko frowned deeply, her expression dark and heavy. The destruction of the Ozaki Grand Bounded Field had dealt her a major blow. The time is almost up. How are we supposed to fight them? I only saw him briefly, but I can tell his strength is at least on par with yours, Aoko. This fight could be extremely dangerous. Are you prepared for that? You might die. What nonsense are you talking about, Alice? I made that resolution over 10 years ago. I haven't been slacking off all this time. Aoko patted her chest in assurance, her fighting spirit rising. No, I just wanted to check on your condition. Seeing you so fired up puts me at ease. Let's get ready, Aoko. It's time for us to strike back. Alice Kuonji donned her witch's robe and prepared to set out immediately. As a pure-blooded witch, she had been thoroughly toyed with by the enemy, allowing them to even infiltrate her most cherished mansion. If she didn't reclaim her honor, she wouldn't be able to let it go easily. Now, Alice Kuonji was just as eager for battle. Alright, Alice. Let's go fight them together. At that moment, Aoko clenched her fists, her fighting spirit blazing as well. No matter if they're the Grand Puppeteer or the Magician of the Third Magic, I'll defeat them. We are the strongest. Midnight. Old school building. As I expected, you didn't heed my advice. You still came with Aoko, didn't you? The Witch of Mainster. From his high vantage point at the old school building, Roy looked down at the 2 figures slowly approaching. His eyes narrowed slightly as he spoke, his tone carrying a hint of helplessness. Although he had predicted this outcome, he had hoped she would retreat and not get involved in this dangerous situation. Hey. Didn't you say you wanted to challenge me? Then come down and fight me right now. If you lose, leave Misaki Town immediately. Oh? Feeling quite confident, aren't you, Miss Aoko? Seeing Aoko Ozaki brimming with fighting spirit, Roy's lips curled into a smile. But to avoid any misunderstandings, Miss Aoko, before we begin, let me clarify something. Unlike with Tuko, in this fight, you are the challenger. As he finished speaking, an overwhelming surge of magical energy erupted from him. From his elevated position, he gazed down at the 2 below, his eyes filled with undisguised battle intent. You sure talk big. No matter what you're planning, I'll defeat you. I'll crush you head-on with all my strength. Aoko shot back without hesitation. Since we're both magicians, let's settle this. Don't drag anyone else into it. Roy raised an eyebrow, leaning forward to get a better look at Aoko. So, you're saying you want to fight me one-on-one, without the witch next to you joining in? That's right. You're here for me anyway, aren't you? Let's have a one-on-one battle right here. Don't involve innocent people. Hearing Roy's words, Aoko nodded in agreement. She wanted a direct magical duel between herself and Roy, rather than risking Alice getting hurt. If Tuko were here, Aoko would naturally team up with Alice, with her dealing with the Magician of the Third Magic while Alice kept her sister occupied. But since it seemed Roy was the only one present, Aoko didn't want to put her close friend in danger, especially on enemy territory where the risks were unknown. Aoko, don't be reckless. If we fight together, our chances of winning are higher. Alice Kuonji tried to persuade her, but Roy had already raised his hand without anyone noticing. In that case, I respect your choice. Or rather, I was thinking the same thing. Even if you hadn't suggested it, I would have ensured that the switch stepped aside. Although no magical energy had been channeled, the gesture was a signal. A dangerous one. Click. Before Alice could finish her sentence, a shadow in black lying prone on a distant building pulled the trigger. Bang. With a dull gunshot, A specially made silver bullet crossed over a kilometer in the blink of an eye, piercing through her chest. Alice didn't even have time to scream. The powerful impact sent her small body flying, and as the special bullet touched her, it melted instantly. Oko. At that moment, Alice Kuonji's vision went white, and a wave of fatigue and drowsiness washed over her mind. In just a few breaths, she lost consciousness. Alice. The attack had been too sudden, too fast. It happened so quickly that they could barely react. Before coming here, Alice had taken every possible precaution against the enemy. She had activated one of her 3 trump cards, the Rose Hound, to stand guard and prevent an ambush by the Golden Wolf. The Grey Owl formed by the Song of Sixpence circled overhead to scout for any nearby enemies, and her dress had been fortified with magical defenses. So why? Why did this happen so suddenly? In an instant, their numbers had been reduced. The duo of Oko and Alice had been split, leaving Oko to face the battle alone. At the sound of the gunshot, Oko immediately realized that the opponent wasn't using magecraft or familiars, but modern firearms. A sniper was positioned far away on a rooftop, targeting them. Ready at any moment to take out the witch. A Magus killer's greatest strength was, of course, dealing with traditional Magus. And Alice Kuonji was undoubtedly the most traditional kind of Magus. Although her witch's robe had been laced with numerous anti-magic enchantments, she hadn't anticipated that the enemy would use firearms. With the situation unfolding like this, the Rose Hound that had been tailing them had no choice but to abandon its planned role in supporting Oko in battle. It reluctantly rushed to Alice's side to protect her. "You bastard! What have you done?" Oko turned her head, roaring in fury. "Apologies, Ms. Oko. To prevent the witch from interfering in the upcoming fight, I had to ask her to step aside. Otherwise, she would have been in great danger during the battle." Step aside? To hurt someone for such an absurd reason. Damn it. This man in front of her was far worse than Toko. She could never forgive him. "You despicable scum. Not only did you deceive me, but you also dared to hurt Alice. This time, I'll make sure to kill you." If Toko's target was her, Oko would stop any number of enemies. But she couldn't tolerate anyone repeatedly hurting her friends. Enraged beyond reason, Oko went into a full-blown rampage. Her crimson hair danced wildly in the dark night. Circuit, connect. With just a brief incantation, Oko underwent a massive transformation. The flow of magic circuits in her body surged to hundreds, even thousands of times their usual efficiency, easily pushing her to her maximum output. The most terrifying part was that this frenzied mode of operation caused no discomfort to Oko's body. Countless circuits overlapped and amplified each other, and the blue flames rising from her body burned like the rage in her heart. Magic circles, densely packed, appeared at her fingertips, and an immense amount of magical energy began to gather. Mode change, magic bullet projection. With Oko's fury fueling her, the violent magical energy was now uncontrollable. The terrifyingly destructive blue magic bullets rapidly formed within the magic circles at her fingertips. Fire. With those words, a barrage of blue rain came crashing down from the night sky. And then, the entire bounded field began to tremble. Chapter 114, 114 Heaven Hymn. Green magic bullets rained down continuously like a torrential storm. A whirlwind of blue energy swept across the abandoned schoolyard, shredding the overgrown weeds and scattered rubble. Under this barrage of dense magical power, the already decrepit playground collapsed completely. Bang. 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 The azure rain of magic bullets fell relentlessly, resembling a dazzling meteor shower. The visual clash between blue and red, set against the backdrop of a night sky as beautiful as a painted canvas, added a dreamlike quality to the battle. Beautiful and powerful. A figure leaped high into the air, entering Roy's field of vision. So this is the fifth magic of the Ozaki family. What incredible destructive power. He couldn't help but express his admiration. Witnessing the spectacle that seemed like falling stars, Shiki couldn't help but exclaim in awe. What immense destructive power. Oko, is this your sister's strength? Oko. So this is how much you've grown? You idiot, you're still a fool who knows nothing but destruction and cheating. To think the fifth magic ended up in your hands, it's such a waste. Seeing Oko's overwhelming display of power, Tuko exhaled a smoke ring from the stands. So this is the power of the fifth magic? It's truly eye-opening. Meanwhile, Roy, who had been targeted by Oko, relied on his exceptional agility. His body leaped into the air, transforming into a mass of black flames intertwined with dark lightning as he weaved through the azure storm. His speed was increasing, growing faster and faster, almost to the limit. His ice blue eyes gleamed as his movements accelerated. To him, the rain of blue magic bullets seemed to slow down. Alice Kuonji, being a witch unskilled in combat, rarely used truly destructive spells. Oko, on the other hand, specialized in highly destructive spells, particularly her unique magic bullets, which could easily cause damage comparable to tank shells. Their plan had been for Alice to use her mystic eyes to restrain the enemy, providing Oko with a space to launch her devastating attacks. Tuko's evaluation of Oko was, she's a monster with irreplaceable destructive power. That frail-looking body of hers contains an unparalleled force of destruction. Don't go easy on her out of pity, or you'll end up like me. Seeing this scene unfold, Roy could understand why Tuko had described Oko that way. He couldn't help but praise her. That's an incredible range and power, but I'm no slouch either. The black flames passed through the rain of blue light. Only the booming explosions, the soaring waves of dust, and the bursts of fire celebrated the devastation in their wake. So fast. Oko held her breath, her eyes locked on the rapidly approaching arc of black light. But don't underestimate me. Try my improved magic bullets. Mode extension, magic bullet projection, lock on. A magic circle rose beside Oko as she lifted her finger, locking onto the speeding Roy. Fire. As Roy rapidly closed in on Oko, alarm bells suddenly went off in his mind. The invisible magic bullets shot toward him at high speed, appearing out of nowhere and aiming to shatter his skull. Faced with the incoming barrage of bullets, Roy didn't continue his advance. Instead, he stopped in his tracks, raised his hand, and activated his magic circuits, releasing a surge of magical energy. He forcibly sent Oko's magic bullets back at her. Boom. The different types of magic clashed in an instant, and the opposing magic bullets collided midair, exploding on impact. A blinding white light flashed before both their eyes, like a flashbang going off, temporarily robbing them of their vision. For that brief moment, neither side gained the upper hand. This isn't over yet. In a fit of fury, Oko Ozaki showed no signs of holding back. In the next instant, she continued her assault. Blue energy flared up around her, and her body shot forward like a cannonball. In a single breath, she closed the distance and threw a heavy punch at Roy. There was no testing of the waters, no setup. Oko was fully intent on killing him with this attack. As a master of magic bullet projection, she's resorting to close combat? Oko's sudden approach caught Roy by surprise. Still, he wasn't intimidated in the slightest. High-level full-body reinforcement. Thousands of magic circuits surfaced on Roy's body like veins. His already formidable physique was further enhanced by magecraft. He raised his hand, covering himself in black flames. With a force and speed equal to Oko's, he counterattacked. Boom. Black and blue flashes collided in the night sky. The terrifying magical power erupted like a volcanic explosion. The two clashed like missiles, exchanging hundreds of blows in mere moments. The overwhelming force of their battle shattered the area's magical field, reducing the surrounding buildings of the old school to rubble and making it impossible for anyone to get close. The hidden boundary field that Tuko had set up could barely withstand the shockwaves from their confrontation. Meanwhile, the Rose Hound hurriedly carried the unconscious Alice Kuonji away. However, it seemed the dumb dog was running in the wrong direction. These monstrous brutes. Only those two could fight with such sheer brutality. Tuko muttered in admiration as she maintained the bounded field and watched the fight between these two terrifying magicians. Noticing the Rose Hound heading the wrong way, Roy grew concerned. He quickly summoned a silver sword from Volumen Hydrargyrum, shooting it forward to guide the dog and the unconscious Alice away from the battlefield. Buzz. Whoosh. The silver streak followed its master's command, carrying the unconscious Alice Kuonji safely toward Tuko and the others in the safe zone. You bastard! Seeing the silver sword shoot toward the Rose Hound, Oko flew into a rage. How dare you harm Alice? Unforgivable. Although he wanted to pull back and defend, it was difficult for him to break free and protect them in the midst of the clash. Instead, he seized the opportunity during Roy's momentary distraction to gather his magical energy and deliver a powerful punch. Bang! Because Roy had been distracted by summoning the silver sword to escort the girl and beast away, he didn't manage to dodge Oko's punch. He took the blow head-on, with his face absorbing the full impact. In an instant, his body shot out like a cannonball. That punch was impressive. The misaligned bones in his neck and the burns on his skin from Oko's blue magical flames made Roy's situation look rather grim. However, Oko, who had just sent Roy flying, didn't pursue him further. Instead, she quickly steadied herself and rushed toward where Alice Kuonji was. But when she turned her head, she didn't see the scene she had expected. The silver sword piercing the Rose Hound and injuring Alice. Instead, the sword was guiding them, safely leading them out of the battlefield. What's going on? You! Oko turned back, looking in disbelief at the battered Roy. That punch really hurt. It felt like I'd been run over by a divine chariot. Although he had taken the punch directly, it hadn't resulted in any irreversible damage. The pain was intense, for sure, especially since his neck had been outright broken. As he was sent flying, Roy raised his right hand, conjuring a new silver sword. He drove it into the ground to stop his backward momentum, while his other hand grabbed the ground to help him rise. Seeing Aoko's astonished expression, Roy didn't say much. He simply gritted his teeth, adjusted his dislocated neck with a crack, and brushed the dust off his body, as if nothing had happened. Looking at Aoko's shocked face, he responded, "Don't worry about these minor setbacks, Ms. Aoko. Such small injuries aren't enough to affect our battle." With that, something miraculous occurred. Third magic, soul conversion, physical restoration. A soft, pale light enveloped his body, and the injuries on Roy's body rapidly healed under the influence of this strange blow. "How did you do that? That should have been a fatal blow. I'm sure I broke your neck." Aoko was surprised by what she saw. She knew better than anyone how powerful her punch had been. Yet, he had recovered so quickly? "Don't be so surprised, Ms. Aoko. This is just a basic application of the third magic. If that's all it took to bring me down, I wouldn't deserve the title Magician of the Third Magic. The soul is born before the body, and the body's form is influenced by the shape of the soul. By using the third magic, it's possible to touch the soul and alter its form, thereby reshaping the body and achieving instant healing." This was also the reason why, even without Avalon, Roy could remain in peak condition after sparring with Morgan in a simulated battlefield for 2 months. The exploration and expansion of the third magic's applications. Magic is fascinating, isn't it? Alright then, Miss Aoko, now that your friend has been escorted to safety, there's no need for us to hold back anymore. Let's start the next round of our battle. This time, I'll go first. With those words, Roy launched his attack. Raising his palm, he extended his fingers as powerful magical energy began to surge rapidly. Circuit activation, magic bullet condensation. Compression, concentration, collapse, expansion. The 4 steps were completed in an instant, and with just a wave of his hand, he sent a high-density magic bullet flying as a return gesture for Aoko's punch. Well played. As if responding to the terrifying magic bullet flying towards her, Aoko showed no intention of retreating. She raised her hands and gathered blue magical energy, fiercely counterattacking without losing any momentum. Bang! The clash of the 2 magic bullets sent a fierce wind sweeping through the area. In an instant, the violent magical energy spread across the entire school, kicking up dust that filled the sky. Amidst the rising dust, 2 figures stood still, silently facing each other. Neither made a move, waiting as the dust, following Newton's laws, slowly settled back to the ground. The view finally cleared. It was Roy who spoke first. "Use all your strength, Ms. Aoko. The battle ahead won't be something you can handle half-heartedly. I'm going to get serious too." As he finished speaking, the magical energy surrounding Roy began to explode continuously. His azure eyes gleamed with brilliance, and a white light covered his body. The fierce silver magical energy surged toward Aoko, tearing through the air. Third magic, mana conversion, full power. "Use your 5th magic, Miss Aoko, and let's have a real clash between my third magic and your 5th. Stop talking big, you idiot. If you think you can beat me, you're far from it." At this point, Aoko understood what this man truly wanted. Surprisingly, she too felt her fighting spirit rise. As a magician of the 5th magic, she had her own pride and confidence. Her magic would never be lost to anyone. Aoko also began to intensify her magical energy, preparing to unleash her true power. Although both were ready for a final battle, Roy took a moment to speak to Aoko before it began. "Don't worry, I'm not someone who kills recklessly. The bullet that hit that witch was just a special tranquilizer. At most, it will make her take a short nap. It won't cause any real harm to her body. I've already sent a coat to pick her up from the bounded field's perimeter. You don't need to worry about her safety. Just focus on fighting me, and I'll take all your anger and magic head-on. Is that so? Then I'm really relieved." Hearing this, a weight lifted off Aoko's chest, but her fighting spirit didn't wane one bit. With a grim expression and gritted teeth, she said, "Don't think that just because you said that, I'm going to go easy on you. Next, we'll settle the score between us. First, I'll knock you down, then I'll go and teach Tako a lesson. You both need to be held accountable for what you've done." In the next moment, Aoko unleashed all of her accumulated magical energy. At this point in the battle, there was no longer any need to hold back. Both sides were now fully committed, adjusting their magic to its peak state. "I'll accompany you to the end." Roy breathed heavily, his ice blue eyes unwavering. This battle excited him as well. At his level, finding an opponent of equal strength to test himself against was a rare occurrence. 2 brilliant beams of magical energy erupted in full force. The immense power they unleashed pushed the already fragile bounded field to its breaking point. Crack. Damn. At that moment, Tuko, who was responsible for maintaining and controlling the bounded field, lowered her hand. These two had actually shattered the bounded field. The bounded field, which was of the highest restriction level, was designed to prevent their battle from affecting the outside world or being noticed by other people. With the bounded field broken, their destructive power would no longer be confined to the abandoned school building. If they continued to fight at this level, the damage to the city would be unimaginable. Fighting in such an environment was somewhat limiting, making it impossible for them to fully enjoy the battle. Roy rubbed his hands together, watching as Oko rapidly approached. A bold idea crossed his mind. If that's the case, then let's get a little rough today. I'll try out this new technique. It wasn't meant for her, but it still needs to be tested in real combat. Using it against a magician of the fifth magic wouldn't be a waste. Too bad Tuko and Shiki won't be able to see the real battle that's about to unfold. I'll just apologize to Tuko afterward. Right now, I'm more interested in winning this fight. With that thought, Roy's consciousness sank deep into his soul. In the world constructed from his mental image, a radiant aurora instantly connected the white, endless horizon with the heavens. Then, high-speed divine words. His lips moved slightly as he began to chant, "Rise, green star, silver desert, under the black Sunday." What's this? Oko sensed something was wrong with the strange magical energy surrounding him and the distorted light and shadow behind him. She immediately unleashed her magic and charged toward Roy at full speed, trying to interrupt whatever he was doing, but it was already too late. Mercury, gold, philosopher's stone, pillar of heaven. Unite the 4 points, and the miracle that descends will be your domain. Roy formed a strange hand sign in front of his chest, and as Oko's face approached, the white light behind him exploded. The projection of the mental image world became more concrete in front of them. From the outside, the world appeared as an endless expanse of white sand beneath their feet, while the sky was filled with a blinding white light. The sun in this world was not red, but rather a blend of gray and white hues. Oko felt an unusual sense of unease from this world, even a tinge of fear she hadn't felt in a long time. But at this point, there was no turning back. She was already standing on foreign ground, isolated from the rest of the world. Roy's imagination expanded, and with it, the outline of this blank and void-filled world became clearer. The more he imagined, the more defined the world's contours became. His lips moved slightly as he softly uttered the name of this world. Heaven Him. Chapter 115, 115. The outcome is decided. Gray sand, a pitch-black sun, and black flames burning at his feet, while a pure white tower looms behind him. Endless magical power surrounds him, making the entire world seem like a mere backdrop. This is a reality marble, also known as a domain. It is the highest realm of magecraft, a magecraft that materializes the Magus's inner vision of a landscape. Once activated, it alters the surrounding space into a completely different scenery. The manifestation of the inner landscape means that the reality marble replaces both the self and the world without changing the boundaries. At this point, the size of the self and the world will swap, and the world will be completely contained within a small vessel. This small world is referred to as the world egg, which also serves as the theoretical name. In battles within a reality marble, it can either be a covering or a tug of war, depending on the abilities of both parties. This powerful magecraft, which rewrites reality with the Magus inner landscape, known as reality marble, is the ultimate magecraft closest to the realm of true magic and has been classified as a forbidden spell by the Mages Association. This magecraft is defined as a subspecies of imaginary materialization, creating a boundary that shapes the caster's inner world to erode the real world. However, unlike imaginary materialization, the form of the reality marble cannot be freely determined. Since it is formed from the unique inner self of the caster cannot exert will over the construction of the boundary, but the reality marble can also affect unnatural things, which is superior to imaginary materialization. According to the Mages Association's research and analysis, the reality marble was originally a power that only Fae and demons could wield. However, after years of practice in creating their personal inner worlds, some advanced Magus have made it possible to create a reality marble. Most of the 27 dead apostle ancestors can use a reality marble, but overall, the number of Magus capable of wielding this world-altering great magecraft is not many. Apart from naturally occurring Fae, other beings created alternate worlds would be erased by the concept known as nature. Therefore, maintaining a reality marble requires a massive amount of magical energy and cost, leading ordinary Magus to be able to sustain it for only a few minutes at most, even if they manage to activate their reality marble without seeking external assistance. In summary, this power can be seen as the ultimate embodiment of the realm of magecraft, a special power that even Oko, as a magician, would find hard to comprehend. Thus, ending the battle in this manner is the best strategy. At this moment, the inner vision manifests. However, Roy's reality marble is not complete, as he has not been involved in magecraft for long, and his inner world does not fully manifest. Even the reality marble he can currently deploy relies on the training from Logo's React and insights gained from his battle with Morgan and has not yet reached the level of perfect execution. But even so, it is enough, it is still a reality marble. Moreover, it is a reality marble initiated and supported by a magician. In an instant, a stranger aura descends. From the white sandy sea, a pure white tower rises beneath Roy's feet, while a gigantic grey sculpture, bound and sealed by chains, stands over 10 meters tall in the desert behind him. Under the glow of the aurora, every wing atop it shimmers with warm light. Roy stands before the statue, slowly extending his arms. An angel descends. Since the end of the war in Fuyuki City, the false angel created by the Holy Grail has descended upon this pale world. He looks down from above at Aoko Aozaki below, his hand signs changing. Crack. 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 Soon, the countless chains binding the angel all break apart, and even the petrified signs on it begin to fade. Roy and the angel align, and under his command, the massive angel gradually regains its vitality. The world chains entwined around its body shatter, and countless wings flap once more, stirring up a storm of white sand. Let's begin the next round of battle, Magician of the Fifth Magic. In this domain, we can fight with all our might. As long as this world exists, it won't affect the real world. However, I must remind you that my completion level for this reality marble is not particularly high, so my actions might be a bit heavy-handed. If you don't go all out this time, it really will crush you. With those words, the white angel fully revives, its radiant wings spreading wide. You really dare to say that, huh? You actually opened up such a different world and summoned such a monster. Facing the angel of light slowly approaching her, Aoko Aozaki grits her teeth but dares not underestimate it. The exceptionally high ether density in this reality marble is as if the age of the gods has returned. If an ordinary person were to enter, they would suffer from magical poisoning and die in agony almost instantly. While an increase in ether density is a good thing for Magus, it is different here. The magical power is very unique, possessing a different aura. Although she doesn't know why, it is undoubtedly unlike the magical power from the outside. Aoko has a bad feeling, it feels like a carefully prepared bait. If she were to absorb and convert it, something terrible might happen. Moreover, this enormous creature in front of her brings unprecedented pressure, surpassing all previous foes. While they are all giant enemies, compared to this giant of light, Alice's Thames Troll is nothing. Its specific abilities are still unknown, but what difference is there between a magical power level of this degree and infinity? As the angel moves, she can even sense the ether concentration around her rapidly soaring, and this enormous being of light resembles a legendary gods. In any case, faced with such an opponent, Aoko dares not to be careless and cautiously prepares for everything that might happen next. Well then, the battle has begun. Seeing that Aoko is ready for battle, Roy smiles and commands the angel to attack Aoko. The white light shadow charges forward. She doesn't know how this angel moves, how it can act so swiftly with such a massive and irregular body. With its light wings unfurled it moves as if waving its arms, rushing toward Aoko Aozaki at incredible speed. Due to its immense magical power and density, the ground cannot bear the scorching heat and strength it brings, melting and sinking the sand in its wake, leaving a deep lava trench in the vast silver desert. Is it coming? The intense heat and the approaching massive magical power source create a terrifying pressure, making Aoko exhale. She slightly closes her eyes to adjust her magic, getting into the best condition, her anger transforming her red hair into a fiery dance in the heated atmosphere. At this moment, Aoko's anger has reached its peak. No matter what kind of monster the opponent summons, she will ruthlessly shatter it all to pieces. Seeing this scene, Roy can't help but narrow his eyes. He knows that the magician of the fifth magic is truly serious now. She extends her hand, raising her left arm like a cannon, aiming at the approaching angel. Circuit, link. Once again, the chant of this brief incantation echoed. It was clearly a simple and unadorned magical operation, yet under her actions, it seemed so extraordinary. The efficiency of Aoko's magic circuit surged once more. This time, both the speed and quality surpassed dozens, even hundreds of times more than before. Then, the special trace known as time gradually manifested on her body, with massive magical power surging and bursting forth within her magic circuit. Endurance, launch. Immediately, the magical power within Aoko seemed to ignite, her crimson hair danced in the wind stirred up by the magic, and the tremendous magical energy extended from her arms to her fingertips. Her palm transformed again into a finger gun, unfolding intricate magical arrays around her. With extreme precision, they overlapped, and the magic bullets operating within had reached a terrifying level of power through this stacking. Each shot was as powerful as a missile, and the force kept accumulating while the number of bullets continued to increase. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of magic bullets of different colors shot forth from her fingertips like a meteor shower. Whoosh! 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 Such a magic bullet attack, in terms of power and range, could already compete with A-rank noble phantasms. And this output clearly wasn't her limit. Faced with such a dense barrage, Roy couldn't help but flinch slightly, evidently surprised by this unconventional use of the fifth magic. Truly, it was no wonder that Tuko Ozaki said, "That girl is just a useless person except for destruction and cheating." She had completely utilized magic to enhance her destructive power. Although she witnessed the blue meteor shower descending, Roy had no intention of dodging it. Instead, he chose to change his hand seals and commanded the angel to extend its palm and sweep directly toward the incoming light bullets. Receiving the command, the enormous angel trembled slightly, and suddenly, several thick arms sprouted around its body. Its light wings began to vibrate, forming a cross shape as it charged directly toward the incoming light bullets. Facing a flexible opponent like Oko, the angel's massive body became a burden. Such a large body was merely a target for the magical bullets. No matter how agile it was, it couldn't match the speed of Oko's magic bullets. It would be hit no matter how it moved. In that case, might as well not dodge and take them all. Boom! With a deafening explosion. The terrifying power of the magic bullets made the angel's form shake as if the photon-constructed body was blasted apart at several points, with a multitude of photons escaping from the wounds. Is this all you've got? Is it just big and clumsy? Seeing the enormous angel heavily wounded by her first round of attacks, Oko was somewhat surprised. Although she had just unleashed her full power attack, it shouldn't have had such an effect. With the angel's presence and magical power level, it definitely shouldn't be this weak. So, what was going on? She looked up at Roy, who was controlling the angel from the high platform, trying hard to glean something from his expression. However, his face remained calm, without joy or sadness. Because the real show was just beginning. In the next moment, Oko understood Roy's reliance. The enormous angel healed its previously blasted injuries at an incredible speed, extending more light wings from the wounds. To adapt to Oko's attacks, its body began to evolve, developing a thick outer shell, and its size had grown several times larger than before. The gears beneath Roy's feet on the tower turned. Adaptation complete. Within the established reality marble, the enormous angel already possessed a terrifying adaptability to any attack, and with Roy's support and manipulation, its strength was greatly enhanced. I won't let you succeed. However, Oko wouldn't be foolish enough to stand still, waiting for the angel to complete its self-adaptation. She quickly raised both arms, with her palms as guns, operating countless magic circles. She transformed into a bomber, launching another round of more powerful fire coverage against the angel. Brilliant stars surged like a tide, continuously striking the angel's massive surface. Boom! Boom! The roaring sound echoed endlessly. The desert beneath her feet, along with every piece of land the angel occupied, became her target for attack. High-concentration magic bullets mixed with small sources rained down like gunfire on the battlefield, unrelentingly striking everything in the area. Oko's eyes were filled with coldness. Fully immersed in battle, she had lost the warmth she once had. At this moment, she was entirely dedicated to the fight, determined to shatter the angel, Roy, and this entire realm into pieces. The fierce bombardment lasted for several minutes, and the entire world resembled a scene after a sandstorm, shrouded in swirling dust that severely impaired visibility. The ground beneath had lowered several meters due to her relentless bombardment, littered with melted sand and debris, creating an extremely chaotic scene. As for the angel, which Oko had focused on, it was left with no intact body, swaying like a tattered cloth glued together in the smoke, as if it could collapse completely with a gentle tear, shattering like broken porcelain amid the ruins. The victor had been determined. This thought arose in Oko's mind. Looking at the giant, now devoid of the ability to act, she let out a slight breath and relaxed her body a bit. Since she had smashed this troublesome monster, the only one left to deal with was that detestable trickster. She had to drag him out and give him a good lesson, making him and Tuko pay for their actions. She stepped into the smoke, walking toward the tower where Roy stood. As she drew near, the figure standing on the tower became increasingly clear. However, the angel's defeat did not induce any panic or frantic escape from the other side, nor did it incite anger to confront her. He simply stood there, quietly watching her approach. Feeling that things weren't that simple, Oko began to be on guard. Crack! A strange sound echoed from the sky, and alarm bells rang in her mind as she quickly turned back. Suddenly, a gigantic hand came crashing down from above toward the spot where she had just been. Boom! The terrifying sound, accompanied by overwhelming power, kicked up dust, causing the ground's elevation to drop several more meters. The strong impact sent Oko flying nearby. How is this possible? The surviving Oko was filled with disbelief. With the power of that slap just now, if she hadn't dodged in time, she would have probably become a pancake. But that wasn't even the most shocking part. Suddenly, a massive surge of magical energy came from above, and the entire ground began to sway, as a shadow darkened the sky and pressed down on her. Is it a new enemy? Aoko thought as she dodged the continuing attack. But when she looked up to see the enemy that had launched the attack, she was completely stunned. The giant of light, which had been shattered into pieces, instantly restored itself at an incredible speed. Moreover, it sprouted more wings, and its body was now several times larger than before, standing tall like a skyscraper in the white world. At that moment, it coldly gazed at her, and a huge hand that had just fallen down came from it. Then the gears on the tower turned again. Adaptation completed once more. At this moment, the angel had fully adapted to the magical damage it had just sustained and absorbed the magical power provided by Roy as a trade-off. Having completed its evolution again, it now had a terrifying scale. If it weren't for the endless magical energy provided by the third magic in this world, constantly being absorbed by the angel, many Magus would have instantly become human corpses. In this world, magical energy was never meant for Magus to use. Instead, it existed as energy for the angel's activities, adaptations, and even evolution. Are you kidding me? Facing this towering giant that was dozens of meters tall, Aoko couldn't help but widen her eyes. Ignoring Aoko's shock, the restored angel inserted its palm into its body, and countless light points emerged. Then it seemed to grasp something and slowly pulled it out of its body. A massive white sword of light was tightly gripped in its hand, and with a swing, it sent a terrifying surge of magical power and white flames sweeping toward Aoko. With this sword, mountains and seas would be leveled. It restored itself so quickly, and even evolved again? Getting injured and evolving. Is this the true ability of this monster? This kind of monster is too overpowered. Facing the terrifying angel, which was now many times larger than before and wielding a sword that dispels magic, Aoko, who had learned her lesson, certainly did not dare to confront it head-on. Whether she could defeat it was one thing, but if she continued to increase the power of her magical bullets and caused this giant to evolve again, there would be no way to fight it. Who knows if this monster's restoration and evolution have any limits? Moreover, Roy, who had been maintaining the reality marble and controlling the angel, hadn't made a move yet. If she kept dragging this out, she would only end up suffering. It was time to change her strategy. As the giant sword was about to strike her down, she chose to leap into the air and create distance. With reinforcement magecraft and the massive magic circle rising beneath her feet, she launched herself into the sky like a magic bullet, soaring hundreds of meters off the ground in an instant. However, the angel's speed was no less impressive. Seeing the target escape, the countless wings extending behind it suddenly flapped, and its massive body shot toward the sky like an arrow released from a bow. In just a moment, Aoko changed her movement in midair. Her elegant form spiraled gracefully, like a beautiful gymnast. Ozaki Aoko quickly adjusted her shape and raised her finger, aiming at her target. But this time, her chosen target was not the giant angel rapidly approaching below, but rather Roy, who was controlling the angel from a distance, along with the white tower beneath him. When facing this type of combat servant, attacking the controller was the right choice. Rather than fighting this massive unknown monster, directly attacking Roy was the best option. Moreover, according to the common sense of Magus, Roy, who was currently controlling the servant, was in the weakest state possible, evident by the fact that he couldn't leave that tower. Though it was despicable, this was indeed the most effective method. And since it was a battle of life and death, she wouldn't hold back. She would use this move to determine victory. Magic bullet sequence, condense, fire. Several arrays soared into the air, and dazzling light rapidly spun in the sky. Then, beams of terrifying power coalesced in midair, shooting straight toward their target. At that moment, brilliant heavenly pillars poured down. Oh? Ignoring the angel and choosing to attack me directly? A wise decision, but I won't just sit back and take it. However, facing the sudden brilliant rays, Roy also felt urgency. He merely lifted his head slightly, his expression still neutral, neither happy nor sad. As the intense beams of light rushed toward him, he lightly raised his hand and moved his lips slightly. The golden light hidden in his chest began to flicker. Garden of Avalon, eternally secluded utopia. With a dazzling white light, the bounded field opened before him, and the golden shield easily blocked the rays capable of annihilating everything. What is that? Seeing her full-powered magical cannon fire easily blocked by some unknown means, Aoko's heart sank to the depths. The situation had reversed. Not hitting Roy meant that the backlash would fall upon her. She didn't even have time to think about her next move. Suspended in midair, she obviously couldn't dodge the upcoming fatal blow. Accompanied by the whistling sound of air friction, the pure white giant angel had already broken through the sky and was right in front of her. The countless wings that spread out sealed the sky, cutting off her escape route. The raised sword to dispel magic glowed brightly as it swung down. This strike was like the heavens collapsing. Even the white aurora in the sky was split in two. Now the outcome was clear. Chapter 116, 116 Money is Power. Crack. With the sound resembling the shattering of a mirror, the white world they were in began to crumble. The scene inside the bounded field gradually faded, and the two people who had been fiercely battling in the endless white desert finally broke free from the bounded field, returning once again to reality. This is the limit. It seems I still need to put more effort into the stability of my reality marble. Roy thought as he observed the dispersing reality marble. The power and performance were decent, and the angel could handle most enemies. However, there was still much room for improvement regarding the bounded field's stability. The months of torment he endured under Morgan were not in vain, after all. His reality marble had already taken shape, and now it was just a matter of reinforcing and perfecting it based on the current framework. As he watched Oko Ozaki, who had been smashed to the ground by the anti-demon sword, stand up again, Roy couldn't help but applaud and praise her. Impressive. To still be so lively after taking that strike head-on, I finally witnessed the miracle of the fifth magic. Humphrey, you're not so bad yourself. If you hadn't held back a bit of your power midair, I would be in a far worse state than I am now. Oko wiped her mouth, her gaze fixed on Roy, who had returned to the playground. Earlier, she had narrowly escaped death by the anti-demon sword. If she hadn't used the fifth magic to reverse her injuries at the last second and avoid death, her fate would have been uncertain by now. Another factor also contributed to her miraculous recovery. The angel had held back slightly. She could feel that the angel's true power was far greater than what it had displayed. In midair, it had sealed off the sky with countless light wings. If it had truly intended to kill her, it wouldn't have stopped at just one strike. A barrage of continuous firepower would have followed. Reversing time with her magic required a few seconds, maybe even just a few breaths, but for that giant monster, it would have been more than enough time to pursue her and strike again. So, he had held back after all. Shall we continue? Oko raised her hand, assuming a fighting stance once more. Let's stop here, Ms. Oko. My goal has already been achieved, and there's no need for us to continue fighting. Roy ended the battle first. Goal achieved? Oko was still a bit angry. He had barged into her territory, shattered the grand bounded field around Misaki Town, and injured Alice. All this, just to witness the so-called magician of the fifth magic and then beat her up. Was he just bored and looking for something to do? How reckless did this guy have to be to say such things? If she wasn't convinced she couldn't beat him, she'd send both him and Tuko flying into space like fireworks. Although it's still a bit unsatisfying, the bounded field is broken. If we continue, this city won't survive the destruction caused by two magicians. Roy continued. Besides, I've learned quite a bit about the miracle of the fifth magic, and this fight has given me a new understanding of myself. Plus, I got some nice photos. Photos? Oko was taken aback. If you want, I can give you a few as souvenirs. Roy pulled a few freshly taken photos from his pocket and tossed them to Oko. The photos depicted her being smashed to the ground by the Angel of Light, looking utterly messy and in a most embarrassing state. Ah! Who would want to keep these as souvenirs? Give them back. Oko angrily exploded upon seeing herself in such a messy state, reacting like an angry wildcat. However, Roy just smiled and shook his head slightly. Those photos were promised as payment to Tuko, so he couldn't return them to her. Once he handed them over to Tuko, the rest was up to the sisters to sort out. Speak of the devil and she shall appear. As soon as Roy sent the photos via phone, the mastermind behind the entire affair arrived. Ha 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 ha. Oko, I never imagined I'd see the day when you, of all people, made such a fool of yourself. It's too embarrassing. You fell flat on your face like that. That annoying, unforgettable voice. Oko didn't even need to guess. She immediately recognized who it was. Turning her head, she saw Tuko Ozaki walking toward them, laughing all the while. Tuko. It's been so long, and you're still as irritating as ever. Oko gritted her teeth, speaking coldly. Oh my, oh my. The almighty magician of the fifth magic. How did you fall so far in just a few years? To think you got beaten down like that. Wow, the Ozaki family's current magician is truly a disgrace. Doesn't this just prove that the fifth magic passed down in the Ozaki family is no match for the third magic? If Grandpa found out about this, he'd be so disappointed. Tuko transformed into a full-on troll, mercilessly mocking Oko. You're amazing. I can't believe you actually beat Oko. Bio, who had entered alongside Tuko, stared at Roy with shining eyes, full of admiration. It was just luck. Roy shook his head. She didn't give you any trouble, did she? Shiki watched the two sisters with a resigned expression. She had finally witnessed the toxic relationship between the Ozaki sisters firsthand. It was beyond dysfunctional. However, recalling the terror of the battle, Shiki didn't forget to ask Roy, "Are you okay? Did you get hurt?" "No, I actually had a lot of fun." "That's good." The two exchanged a brief nod. "Alice. Are you alright? Are you hurt anywhere?" On the other side, Oko, relieved to see her friend reappear, rushed over to check on Alice's condition, ignoring the still taunting Tuko. "Don't worry, Oko. I'm fine. I just took a short nap. They didn't hurt me." "That's good. That's good. It seems that guy kept his word. If they had harmed you, I wouldn't have let this go today," Oko said, finally able to relax after confirming that her best friend was unharmed. "Idiot, I was never in any real danger." Alice chuckled softly, allowing herself to be hugged by Oko. After experiencing one of the most harrowing nights of her life, Alice's heart still fluttered. Looking at her friend, who had fought fiercely for her all night and now appeared disheveled and exhausted, she felt a pang of guilt. "Stop pushing yourself, Oko. You've already been knocked down. Are you hurt anywhere?" "No, not at all. A fight like that can't do anything to me. I could keep going all night if I needed to." Oko rotated her arm and flashed a confident smile. "That's good to hear." Everything seemed normal again, and it looked like Oko was fine. Alice sighed in relief. My. You've been beaten so badly, yet you're still putting on a brave face. You were knocked down like a dog eating dirt. My foolish little sister, the only thing you still have going for you is that stubborn mouth of yours. Look at the sorry state you're in, ha ha ha. Tuko Ozaki was nearby, throwing insults straight to Oko's face. Anger. She couldn't take it anymore. Dealing with this annoying person, Oko's emotions visibly erupted. A murderous aura surged out of her, even her magical energy trembled slightly, and she quickly shifted into battle mode. Her momentum was no less intense than during the previous fight. Then, she moved in an instant. Oko suddenly sprang up and dashed toward Tuko at an incredible speed. Raising a fist wrapped in multiple layers of magic circles, she then delivered a deliberate punch. Following it with a punch, she brutally smashed it into Tuko's face. The attack came so quickly that Bio didn't have time to react. Roy was still talking with Shiki and had no time to help block the punch, so Tuko, who was still lost in her smugness, only felt a sharp pain in her neck. In the brief moment of contact, the outcome between the two sisters had already been decided. Tuko's body began spinning in the air, unable to stop. She didn't have time to control her posture or plan her landing. She just kept spinning uncontrollably. Without executing a proper landing technique, she was thrown straight into the distant wall, like a spinning top launched by Oko's punch. Whoosh! She didn't even have time to scream. In the blink of an eye, her entire body was embedded into the wall behind her, crushed and distorted beyond recognition. It was clear that she wouldn't be getting out of there anytime soon. Die, Tuko. I may not be able to beat that guy, but I can definitely deal with you. Don't get too cocky. Watching the absurd relationship between the sisters, Roy and Shiki just shook their heads, refraining from making any comments. Ha ha ha, Tuko, you're pathetic. You got taken down by Oko so easily. Bio laughed without a trace of sorrow for his master's brutal defeat. He was laughing the hardest. Is she dead? Shiki asked, glancing at Tuko's body, her neck broken, and her figure twisted beyond recognition. Yeah, she's definitely dead. This body is done for. She's probably already switched to a new body and is on her way back now. Roy said calmly as he cast a spell to burn the remains of Tuko's puppet body. He wasn't worried about Tuko's survival. No matter how many times she died, as long as she had a puppet body, she could come back to life fully healed. Her survival skills were comparable to a cockroach. Even if he himself died, she would still persist. But now, it was time to move on to the next step. Alright, the chaos for tonight ends here. There's something I want to discuss with you, Oko Ozaki, the Miss Blue. Huh? What nonsense are you talking about? Hearing this, Oko became displeased. You've caused all this mess, and now you want to talk? If I could beat you, I'd have sent you flying like I did Tuko. Then let's talk after you manage to beat me. Roy replied calmly. What's with that smug attitude? So what if you've mastered a reality marble? It won't be long before I knock you down. Compared to the still angry Oko, Alice Kuonji remained more composed. She sighed and said, if there's something you want to discuss, go ahead. You've earned that right as the victor. Good. Let's start with compensation. Compensation? Alice was slightly taken aback, and Oko raised an eyebrow, her expression cold. After causing all this trouble, who cares about your compensation? I apologize for the trouble Tuko has caused, but I hope you can forgive us. We're not enemies. In fact, from a certain standpoint, we should be allies. Roy shook his head, then snapped his fingers. In response, Emiya Garitsugu, who had been waiting at a designated spot, walked over with a case. He placed it in front of Oko and opened it. Wow! What is this? It's so dazzling. My eyes can't look away. In that instant, Oko's eyes sharpened, and even her breathing became heavy. Inside the case was stack after stack of British pounds, neatly arranged in the center. The sight was blinding. Even Alice, standing nearby, was shocked by Roy's generosity. But unlike the shameless Oko, as a pure-blooded witch, Alice had more resistance to such temptations. She averted her gaze and looked at Roy. If you're only offering money. Snap. Before she could finish speaking, Roy snapped his fingers again, and Garitsugu brought over another black case and opened it. That's more like it. Welcome to Misaki Town, Mr. Roy. As the master of the ley lines here, if you ever need any assistance, feel free to ask. As soon as the second case was opened, Oko bent over before Alice could react, her earlier arrogance replaced by a tone full of respect for capital. As for the grudge she had earlier, and the beating she took, all of that was forgotten beneath the thick stacks of cash. Roy smiled and nodded toward Garitsugu, who closed the case and handed it over to Oko. Now, can we move to a more suitable place for a discussion? I'd like to talk about the darkness hidden within this city. Under Oko's fawning gaze, Alice sighed and nodded reluctantly. Please, lead the way, sir. At the same time, in the dark side of Misaki Town, sensing the disappearance of the Ozaki family's grand bounded field, unsettling noises emerged from the city's cold shadows. A pair of blood-red eyes suddenly opened wide. Several human bodies, already drained and mummified, slid down from the corners, and then a few dark figures slowly rose to their feet. Taking advantage of the pitch-black night, they stepped into the city. Things are about to get interesting. It seemed as though something was whispering in the darkness of the night. Chapter 117, 117 Problem. A large number of dead apostles have infiltrated Misaki Town. The next morning, in the hotel base where Roy and his group stayed. Despite the unpleasant events of the previous night, with the main culprit being killed by Oko Ozaki and Roy offering an apology with enough sincerity, their relations eased, preventing a complete fallout. As for the cooperation agreed upon last night, looking at the intelligence gathered by Emiya Garitsugu throughout the city, both Oko and Alice clenched their fists. How could so many dead apostles infiltrate under the coverage of a great boundary field? Dead apostles scattered throughout the entire city. When did Misaki Town become this dangerous? This situation is far beyond what we anticipated, Alice. The thick dossier, detailing the many missing or deceased individuals, left Oko Ozaki deeply alarmed. It wasn't just Misaki Town. Nearby residential areas were also affected. The scale had reached hundreds of victims, indicating the dead apostles had been operating for quite some time. As the local overseers, they had been completely unaware. If not for Roy's investigation, they might have remained in the dark, a significant dereliction of duty. Alice Kuonji fell into deep thought as she looked over the intelligence. Why was it suppressed to this extent? Although she rarely left her residence, she did keep up with the local news. As far as she knew, only about a dozen disappearances had been reported in the past month, all within her control. Yet in reality, the situation was far worse. Emiya Garitsugu had found the answer to her doubts. Due to the overwhelming number of deaths and disappearances, authorities, aiming to prevent mass panic and protect their reputation, had covered up most of the incidents. Only a small portion was reported to the public to maintain order. The upper echelons were now pressuring the police to solve the issue within a deadline. However, this situation wasn't simply about a deranged serial killer or human trafficking ring. A powerful force from the hidden side was involved. No matter how many police were deployed, they would not be able to solve the problem. Setting the report down, Alice let out a long breath before turning to Roy. Do you have any more information? No, this is as much as I could gather. Roy shook his head slightly while continuing to eat the sandwich freshly made by Shiki. Poking at its overly toasted surface with a fork, he thought to himself that it might have been a bit overcooked. However, seeing Shiki silently prodding the sandwich with her knife and fork, clearly dissatisfied with her own cooking, Roy decided not to comment. These dead apostles aren't just hunting or roaming randomly. This involves many influential figures and conspiracies. Without sufficient resources, continuing to investigate would be very dangerous, which is why I haven't let my subordinates take any more risks. He had only asked Emiya Garitsugu to investigate the dead apostles and gather intelligence on the local overseers and the demon hunter families, without pushing him to delve deeper. Although Garitsugu was skilled, with his origin bullet he could potentially defeat even a lord-level magus like Kenneth. But against the dead apostle ancestors, his chances of survival were slim, and he could even lose his life. Ilyasvail, who had just been saved by Tuko, was still waiting for Garitsugu in Fuiuki City. Roy did not want them to be unable to reunite due to an unfortunate accident. He viewed Garrett Sugu as an ally but had no intention of letting him risk his life. Dangerous? Hearing the word from Roy, Oko seemed somewhat incredulous. If even you think it's dangerous, just who are these dead apostles that have infiltrated the city? Are we talking about one of those monsters from the upper ranks? Having witnessed Roy's prowess the previous night, Oko had to admit, albeit reluctantly, that she had been defeated by him. There had been no tricks or schemes. She had simply lost in terms of skill and expertise. She even suspected that he hadn't shown his full strength in their fight, keeping some trump cards in reserve. Though to be fair, she hadn't used all her abilities either. Still, whether it was his combat strategy, luring her and Alice into his pace, or his mastery of magecraft, with the reality marble being the pinnacle of magecraft, Oko had been thoroughly outclassed. For an opponent like Roy to consider the situation risky, the dead apostles involved were likely truly monstrous. Perhaps even the dead apostle ancestors, the apex of their kind. If these creatures were indeed operating in the shadows of Misaki Town, the situation would undoubtedly become extremely troublesome. Roy didn't hide the truth. The enemies he was dealing with weren't just ordinary dead apostles or even the ancestors. The situation could very well involve the Black Princess and the White Princess, and potentially even the Crimson Moon. Otherwise, Zalrech wouldn't have sent him here in the first place. He explained the situation to Oko, advising her to be cautious and not underestimate the enemy. It wasn't just because they were fellow Magus. Oko was also a skilled and formidable ally. If she were to fall carelessly, it would be a great loss and quite a headache for him. That's right, the enemies coming to Misaki Town this time likely include members of the dead apostle ancestors and more than one of them. Some of them are already hidden within the city. The continuous appearance of dead apostles is their handiwork, which is why they have been able to move so silently and remain so well hidden. Neither the great boundary field left by the Aozaki ancestors nor the scouting familiars of the Kuonji family can easily detect them. The only way to find them is to venture into the city's darkness. Are you saying this involved the dead apostle ancestors? And more than one. Hearing this shocking news, neither the usually optimistic Oko Aozaki nor the calm Alice Kuonji could maintain their composure. Even Shiki, who had been quietly listening, raised an eyebrow at the mention of the dead apostle ancestors. Although she hadn't been studying magecraft for even a year, she knew a bit about the world of magecraft. For instance, the title of the dead apostle ancestors. Something Tuko had once explained to her. She understood why Oko and Alice's faces had darkened at the mention. The dead apostle ancestors were renowned monsters, standing at the apex of the world of magecraft. Each was immortal, wielding tremendous power, and commanding fearsome forces. Even in the world of magecraft, they were figures of terror. If there was only one, it wouldn't be so bad. Although the dead apostle ancestors were formidable, the people present weren't to be underestimated either. But Roy had mentioned multiple ancestors, which had genuinely shocked both Oko and Alice. What were these ancient monsters up to, gathering in Misaki Town instead of causing chaos in Europe or waging war against the Holy Church? Could they be here to hunt her down and seize the Aozaki family's fifth magic? In this backwater town of Misaki Town, the only thing worth the attention of these monsters would be the Aozaki family's fifth magic. Oko couldn't help but think they might be after her. No need to be nervous. Roy reassured her. Their large-scale infiltration isn't about seizing the fifth magic of the Aozaki family. They are here to search for someone in this city. Someone? Yes, you could say they're looking for a princess. A princess? Upon hearing the word, everyone, including Shiki, blinked in surprise and grew more interested. A princess? In this day and age, the only princesses left would belong to royal families, and the dead apostle ancestors certainly weren't after any ordinary princess. They are looking for a being at the pinnacle above the dead apostles, someone on par with the Black Princess Aldroj, known as the White Princess, Arcuaid. The princess of the dead apostles and true ancestors. Hearing this answer, everyone present could no longer stay calm. After finishing his coffee, Roy slowly spoke. For certain reasons, she is currently hiding in a corner of this city. Meanwhile, the remaining dead apostle ancestors and dead apostles are coming from all directions to find her. And it just so happens that she is also my target, which is the main reason I visited this city. Although helping to go get even with Miss Oko was also part of the prearranged plan. Upon hearing this, Alice Kuonji frowned and asked, I can understand the dead apostles searching for the princess, but are you interested in her too? Are you planning to get involved in their dispute? Interested? Not really. I'm mainly here because of a request from an annoying old man. Due to a contract, I have to help him handle this matter. The old man he was referring to was, of course, Zalrech. Since this matter involved the true ancestors, the Black and White princesses, and even the Crimson Moon, it could easily escalate into a global crisis if mishandled. That's why Zelrach had entrusted Roy with this task. Although Zelrach was the wizard marshal of the clock tower, his obsession with magical girls prevented him from grooming a suitable successor. At this point in time, Waver Velvet was still too young, and the magical girl device hadn't found the right candidate yet. This left him with very few capable subordinates. As a result, he had no choice but to outsource the task to someone like Roy. With Roy's strength and his natural ability to counter Roa, he was the perfect candidate for the job. Even if the Crimson Moon were to revive, Roy's combat skills would allow him to at least hold his ground, if not defeat it. Furthermore, with the presence of the Excalibur held by Artoria, there was a decent chance they could win. Therefore, Zelrach looked at Roy with glowing eyes, seeing him not just as a tool, but as the ideal candidate to save the world. However, it was clear that Zelrach knew more than he let on, but had left in such a hurry that he hadn't shared the full details. Roy wasn't Sherlock Holmes. He didn't want to go through the process of uncovering secrets. If only he could directly pinpoint these enemies and deal with them swiftly. Fortunately, compared to the events of Kara no Kyoke, he was more familiar with the story of Tsukuheim. You've shared all of this with us. It can't just be on a whim, right? Finally, it was Alice Kuonji who broke the silence. By now, Roy's intentions were clear. That's right, I'm seeking assistance from the local overseers. He nodded in acknowledgement. This answer didn't surprise Alice, so she asked further, is there anything specific we can help you with? Since they've invaded Misaki Town, as the city's ley lines administrators, we can't just stand by and let them wreak havoc. A clever girl, indeed. Going straight to the point, Roy smiled as he looked at Alice's calm and serious expression. I wouldn't have told you all this for no reason. After all, with the dead apostle ancestors invading Misaki Town, you, as the ley lines administrators, certainly won't just sit back and do nothing. So, I thought to borrow your strength. Of course, we must drive out those who defile life. Good, then. Roy nodded. The more people involved, the greater the power, or rather, the efficiency. This time, the scale of the dead apostles' invasion exceeded my expectations. I want to gather as much strength as possible to eradicate them and force the mastermind to reveal themselves once and for all. And since you are the administrators of Misaki Town, you're naturally more familiar with the area than I am. If you take the lead, it'll make eradicating the dead apostles and finding the princess much easier. I see. We agree to cooperate with you. After hearing Roy's explanation, Oko Ozaki and Alice Kuonji exchanged glances, then nodded slightly, accepting this alliance. However, I have one more thing I'd like to ask you both. Go ahead. They both nodded. It's regarding the demon hunter family in this area, the Tano family. Roy had already sent Emiya Giritsugu ahead of time to gather information about Misaki Town. This included details about the magician of the fifth magic, the witch, and information on the local demon hunter Tano family. However, compared to the others, the information about the Tano family was much more obscure. They couldn't find anything concrete about a demon hunter family by that name. Although the possibility of a name change wasn't ruled out, something felt off to Roy. While his knowledge of Tsukuheim wasn't complete, he still remembered that the protagonist's surname was also Tano and that he possessed mystic eyes of death perception, similar to Shiki's, albeit with some differences. Moreover, he vaguely recalled that the final boss had a significant connection to this family, and Roa might be hiding among them. That's why Roy was deeply curious about this family. Even though Giritsugu hadn't been able to find useful information, he decided to ask the two local overseers directly. The Ozaki family is the oldest family established in Misaki Town. Perhaps Oko knows something about the underlying issues. The Tano family. Upon hearing this surname, Alice Kuonji thought for a moment. She indeed knew that there was a demon hunter family in the area. Although a demon hunter family exists, the current overseer of the city's ley lines is still Oko Ozaki, who is temporarily acting on behalf of the family. With her abilities, as long as nothing particularly major arises, she can handle things easily and hasn't had much contact with this so-called demon hunter family. While it seemed that this family had indeed sent envoys to visit her many times, she had turned them away because she didn't want to meet those strangers. So her understanding of the situation was quite limited. Oko, do you know? The records passed down from the Ozaki family should have some information on the local families, right? After thinking for a while and coming up empty, Alice Kuonji shook her head and then looked at her close friend beside her. Ah, there should be some records. Oko said awkwardly as she scratched her head. But I haven't really gone through those messy records at home, so I don't know much about this family. If you need, I can help you look for the relevant information. It's all locked up in the basement anyway, so it won't get lost. Upon hearing this, Roy nodded. Then I'll trouble you, Ms. Oko. It's nothing. After all, we are temporarily allies now, so I can help with this little thing. Oko Ozaki didn't think much of it and didn't ask Roy for his specific reasons. However, she still felt a sense of caution regarding the demon hunter family Roy mentioned. Although the alliance had already formed, for the sake of caution, Alice Kuonji decided to draft a guise to prevent Roy from backstabbing them for other motives. Although this distrustful action might offend Roy before the alliance officially started, she still needed to be prepared for the worst. Fortunately, Roy had no such intentions and readily accepted the guise. The group then established their alliance. Roy, with the final name written down, they all simultaneously swore an oath to the root and the world, completing this mandatory self-contract in the presence of the root. In the next moment, they felt the binding power from the root wrapping around their bodies. This relieved Alice Kuonji. However, Roy was a bit surprised. Unlike the first time he signed a guise, he didn't feel the same level of binding force from the root this time. It seemed the root had merely stamped a symbolic mark on him. What was going on? Was it an issue with his current body? Or was it something else? He glanced over at Shiki, who was still eating toast, and in a daze, he seemed to see another shadow standing there, beckoning to him. He shook his head slightly. So that's how it is. Unaware of Roy's thoughts, Alice Kuonji, having confirmed the effectiveness of the guise, slightly eased her wariness toward this ally. Then she spoke up, "So, I'll leave the upcoming battle to you, Mr. Roy. Leave it to me. With that, we can consider our enemies as friends. Miss Oko, and the witch of the Kuonji family, please take care of the next actions. Rest assured, even without you saying it, I won't let a single one of those dead apostles who intruded into Misaki town get away." Oko Ozaki looked up at Roy, her eyes still filled with fighting spirit. "But don't think that signing the contract will erase what happened yesterday. While I did lose to you due to my lack of skill last night, I will get my revenge. Next time, I'll defeat you fair and square. Then I'll be waiting for your challenge, Ms. Oko." Roy smiled slightly, not refusing Oko's request for a rematch in the future. He was looking forward to seeing how much progress Oko Ozaki would make after experiencing this setback. However, instead of chatting here, he had other matters to attend to. Originally, these tasks should have been handled by Toko Ozaki, but she had been killed by Oko in a fit of rage last night and had just revived in a new body and was still on her way. So before she arrived, many matters had to be taken care of personally. Standing up, he said to the two, "Let's end our chat here. We can discuss the rest when I return tonight. I have some things to handle, so please excuse me. By the way, Shiki, do you want to come along?" Upon hearing her name, Shiki immediately stood up and responded, "Take me with you." "Eh? Where are you going? Shouldn't we be discussing the battle plan first and then go out to find the dead apostles? Let's talk about that later. I have something else to handle, but I'll be back soon." "Where are you going?" Alice Kuonji asked. "Please tell me the specific location so that if anything goes wrong, we can provide timely support." Support for herself? Asking about his whereabouts. Was she worried he would act out of other motives in Misaki town? Even though they had signed a contract and established an alliance, it seemed she still didn't trust him completely. Rather than concern, it felt more like anxiety. She was indeed a clever girl. However, Roy didn't point this out and instead spoke openly about where he was headed. The local church. About last night, Emiya Garetsugu encountered a dead apostle committing a crime on his way back to the hotel, so he used the black keys provided by Kotamin Kairai to take them down. Unfortunately, while he was taking action, he happened to be seen by people from the church, and he was then invited back to the church for tea, where he was asked for help. So now he needed to visit the local church to rescue Emiya Garetsugu and discuss the issue of the dead apostles. What a troublesome time. Chapter 118. 118 Dead Apostle Ancestors. In a spacious room inside the Misaki church, Emiya Garetsugu, forced to wear shackles, was imprisoned here. He leaned against the wall, staring at the chandelier above, lost in thought. Early yesterday morning, after completing his task with Roy, he happened to encounter several shadowy figures prowling in the night on his way back. Driven by the rekindled sense of justice he had regained, he chose to quietly follow them. Soon, he stumbled upon a scene where several low-ranking dead apostles were attacking a drunken man on a remote slope. As they pinned down the middle-aged man, exposing their fangs and preparing to feast, Garetsugu, driven by a desire to save, intervened and rescued the unfortunate man. However, since this was in the city, using firearms could lead to unnecessary trouble. Thus, he took out a black key soaked in holy water provided by Kotamin Kairai and using his time alter ability, nailed the monsters to the wall, successfully saving the man. Originally, this was just a typical act of heroism, and after dealing with the dead apostles, he should have quickly left the scene. But, coincidentally, he wasn't the only one drawn to the low-ranking dead apostles. There were also professionals in this field. Before he could evacuate, The church's executor blocked his path. The executor's power was terrifying. Even with his time altar, he couldn't escape. After a brief confrontation, he recognized that the other party was not an ordinary cleric. Having investigated her information, he realized she was a member of the burial agency from the Holy Church. Considering the gap in their abilities and recalling his own lack of equipment, as well as his current aim to deal with the dead apostles, he didn't want to clash with the local church's executor. So, Emiya Giritsugu decisively chose to surrender and followed her to this church. However, before he was taken away, he found an opportunity to send a distress signal to his boss with his phone. Knowing the capabilities of his employer, he believed Roy would easily be able to extract him from this situation. After all, a mere church division, even with members of the burial agency, shouldn't be able to stop him. After all, he was a monster who could fight servants and magician. Outside the room, in the cathedral's reception hall, Roy, accompanied by Shiki, was having a friendly meeting with a local executor. However, this executor was not the traditional image of a middle-aged priest but a blue-haired girl, a member of the burial agency. The burial agency is the strongest department within the Holy Church, comprised of members with the highest combat abilities. The selection criteria for this department are not based on faith or loyalty to God but purely on the ability and determination to eliminate heretics. Thus, most of the members here are somewhat mentally unstable. Regarding this, Seal also agreed. She didn't consider herself a normal person either. But among people, there are always more extreme ones. In the burial agency, her current state was already considered one of the more normal individuals. Roy was aware of this. This blue-haired girl cleric was likely named Seal. She appeared as one of the character arcs in Tsukihime, and more importantly, she was the previous reincarnation of the dead apostle, Roa. He vaguely remembered that in the storyline, she appeared as senpai for Tano Shiki, making her an important character, so he had Giritsugu pay special attention to her. Emiya Giritsugu had information about this girl's life experiences, seemingly obtained from Kotamine Kairai, who was also a member of the church. While Kairai found it somewhat puzzling that Giritsugu was suddenly investigating members of the burial agency, he had nothing to hide. He had previously cooperated with this member of the burial agency during his time in the European church. Since Giritsugu wanted to know about her, Kairai faxed the information he had. Seal was originally an ordinary girl. Her father was the owner of a bakery in a small town in France. However, on a day after her 16th birthday, the soul of the dead apostle Roa inadvertently awakened within her, ultimately making Seal the 17th reincarnation of Roa, leading her to endless slaughter and destroying everything she had. Originally, Roa would reincarnate into a noble family, but this time, he was eliminated before finding a suitable reincarnation target. As a result, he unexpectedly reincarnated into the body of an ordinary family's child but gained a body comparable to that of the original Roa. The last reincarnated Roa was soon discovered and hunted down by various forces, including the Holy Church and Arcueid Brune Institute. Roa's soul would transfer to the next target at the moment Seal's body died. However, Seal would resurrect and could not be killed, so after the church confirmed they couldn't kill her, they decided to let her join the burial agency. According to the Holy Church's records, Seal inherited the powerful body left by the dead apostle Roa, along with extensive magical knowledge. However, she rarely used it in general circumstances. Although she knew many spells, she was reluctant to use them. This reluctance was likely tied to her horrifying memories associated with Roa. She is calm, efficient in her work, and formidable in strength, currently ranking 7th among the executors in the burial agency, possessing the 7th Holy Scripture. After reading the information provided by Kotamine Kairai, Roy gained a relatively deep understanding of this girl within the storyline. Despite her formidable strength and calm demeanor, this girl was also part of the many tragedies within the moonlit world. A tragic girl who lost everything she was supposed to have, forcibly bestowed with an immortal life, struggling to survive in this world, and turning the goal of avenging Roa into the meaning of her existence, which is why she has persevered until now. Roy genuinely respected this. He felt pity for this tragic girl. If she hadn't encountered the monster Roa, her family and friends wouldn't have died, and she wouldn't have become something inhuman. She might have been living a happy life now. This world is full of tragedy, only Magus and monsters possess freedom. Ordinary people have never been happy. Ah. While that was quite reasonable, it would have been better if he could free the blue-haired girl nailed to the wall before he started lamenting. It seems I might have been a bit too rough. Looking at Seal, who was pinned to the wall and unable to move, Roy gently clapped his hands and summoned volume and hydrargyrum liquid that was fixed around her walls back to him, allowing the girl to regain her freedom. However, she remained in a semi-conscious state. Since she had initiated the attack first, although she didn't harbor much murderous intent, her target included Shiki, so Roy's response was a bit too extreme. The sudden punch knocked her out, and she obviously hadn't regained her senses yet. I should find Giritsugu first. He should be locked up here. Roy retracted volume and hydrology room and placed Seal down on a bench, worried she might catch a chill. He even covered her with a holy shroud. To Shiki, this scene appeared somewhat strange. Is the holy shroud really used like this? Then please take a seat. After that, Roy found the imprisoned Emiya Giritsugu in a spacious room inside the Misaki church and freed him. Shortly after, the special-bodied Seal also woke up from her coma. Just as tensions were about to rise among the three, Roy suggested that they sit down and talk first. After comparing their strengths, Seal did not refuse and followed Roy to a family restaurant. However, the atmosphere was still quite tense. Shiki observed the extraordinary executor from the side, while Roy calmly drinking coffee. Opposite him, Seal, who had just been fixed up, was lowering her head and devouring the curry rice on her plate. The three of them were engrossed in their own activities, with no one speaking, creating an incredibly awkward atmosphere at the table. Eventually, Roy broke the silence. Let's save the curry rice for later, Miss Seal. I didn't bring you here just to share a meal. Oh? Then what exactly is your purpose, heretical Magus? It's quite impolite to barge into the church's territory uninvited. I don't see anything wrong with that. Roy shook his head. My subordinate was taken by you, I merely came to bring him back. Besides, from the moment I stepped through the door, the one who made the first move to test was you. I was merely defending myself. Upon hearing this, Seal was momentarily stunned. A Magus like you is defending yourself in a church? Is there even such a thing as self-defense in someone else's home? Aren't churches open to all believers of the Lord? I am also a believer of the Lord, is there a problem with coming to the church? Roy smiled at Seal as he answered, even taking out the black leather Bible published by the church that was given to him by Kotamin Kairai and slapping it on the table. He emphasized the flexibility of faith. At that moment, Seal's small head was filled with question marks. You, a heretical Magus, are also a believer? To this, Roy simply smiled and did not reply. What is going on? When did Misaki Town get such a strange person? Yesterday, while patrolling the city, she encountered a peculiar Magus wielding the standard black key of the church's executors, who had already hunted down some dead apostles before she could act. This piqued Seal's curiosity. As the manager of the local church, she chose to bring him back for questioning to clarify his origins, intentions, and where he got the church weapons. However, before she could send someone to interrogate Emiya Giritsugu, the church was invaded. The intruder came without warning, leaving no trace and knocking out all the executors trying to stop him, tossing them into the courtyard. A heretical Magus had come alone to the church's base, and given the recent anomalies in Misaki Town, she decided to act preemptively, planning to subdue the two intruders before questioning them. The result? She found herself no different from the ordinary executors. Within moments of engaging, she was pinned down and knocked unconscious, unable to move. The speed was so fast that she couldn't react, and the strength was so great that even her unique physique felt immense pain. This overwhelming sense of powerlessness reminded her of that annoying madwoman from the burial agency. Where did this monster come from? You can lay hands on clergymen in the church, yet I see no trace of reverence for the Lord in you. Seal said coldly. Ha, belief is existence, disbelief is non-existence. You can imagine as you wish, I'm just here to bring my subordinate home. That doesn't seem to be the whole story. Putting down the spoon she was holding, Seal stared at Roy, questioning, if you were just looking for your subordinate, you should have left once you found him. Although you broke into the church's base, you only knocked out those executors without killing or harming anyone. Yet, you intentionally brought me here. What's the reason for that? We are not enemies. I'm not an ordinary Magus, nor do I harbor any prejudice against the church. The reason for bringing you here is quite simple. Since I've finally met an expert in dealing with dead apostles, of course, I want to ask you some questions. After all, your burial agency is the expert in this field, unlike someone like me who is an outsider. Burial agency? Upon hearing this term, Seal's eyes widened. You seem to have known I was here from the beginning and even knew my identity. Where did you get this information? Her identity wasn't a huge secret within the church. Executors who cooperated with her usually had access to her data for better coordination. Yet this was not something an ordinary Magus could know. What exactly was this guy? Sorry, that touches on my personal secrets, so I can't disclose that. However, as a member of the burial agency, your information isn't very confidential. Anyone who cares to investigate can find it. So you're saying, you, a Magus, actually know people among the executors in the church? Seal's expression darkened as she considered this possibility. Just some old friends. Then tell me, what is your true purpose for seeking me? It can't just be to chat here. Well, that's right. Roy nodded. My visit this time is indeed to retrieve my subordinate whom you captured. The other purpose is to discuss issues regarding dead apostles and the true ancestor with an expert like you. Also, about the 27 dead apostle ancestors' ex-seat. Roa. Roa. Hearing the name of the nemesis that had ruined her life, Seal's eyes widened. Although she quickly regained her composure, the anger that slipped out unintentionally was hard to hide. What do you know? I know far more than you imagine. According to the church's records, there was a large-scale dead apostle attack in a certain small town in France, leading to widespread terror. The entire town fell, and it was only when the church intervened that the outbreak was contained. Roy raised his hand and stared seriously into Seal's eyes, continuing, and the culprit was the dead apostle known as Roa, right? Although the information about the French incident has been classified by the church, it still couldn't be hidden from me. Am I right, Miss Elgia, the only survivor of the French incident? Elgia. This name was Seal's real name. No one had called her that since the day of the French incident. You even managed to find out about that. You really are impressive. Seal sighed, then asked, so why are you telling me all this? What is your purpose, Magus? Don't be so nervous. In terms of position and purpose, we don't actually conflict. What is your purpose? First, to find a lost princess, then to stop the Crimson Moon from being resurrected, and finally, to clear out those troublesome dead apostles. It's that simple. Clearing the 27 dead apostle ancestors. Seal was taken aback upon hearing this. You really dare to say that? Even the burial agency and the knights would pay a hefty price to deal with the members of the 27 dead apostles. Don't worry, I have my own methods. Roy smiled. Roa is also your target? Of course. Like you, I have some connections with that despicable serpent. And with him. At this point, Roy opened his palm, and the dark flame ignited from the depths of his soul blazed fiercely. It's like we're natural enemies. Once we meet, it's a fight to the death. This is a gift from the Count, and within the flames lies the past. Including the Count's hatred for Roa. Therefore, that despicable serpent must die this time. Seeing this, Seal's eyes flickered unintentionally. She realized that this flame was capable of igniting souls, and the anger conveyed in Roy's eyes, along with his words of vengeance, was serious. He, too, was a seeker of revenge against Roa, just like herself. Thinking of this, Seal let out a small sigh and said, all right, I will tentatively believe that your hatred for Roa is genuine, but how should we cooperate? It's simple, you just need to provide me with information. Have you estimated the number of dead apostles? Hearing Roy's question, Seal shook her head and replied, not yet. The number of dead apostles involved this time is simply too many. In just 1 month, I have already hunted 12 dead apostles. Because the local administrators' detection systems are in place, those dead apostles have been hiding their tracks and are hard to find. They only showed themselves again last night. Moreover, I have no idea where Roa is hiding in the city and is continuously creating his followers, so we still can't detect the exact number. Active since last night? Just when the great bounded field was shattered by me, it seems the one hiding behind it can hardly contain themselves anymore. However, according to the church's detection this time, among the confirmed dead apostle ancestors, at least 2 may appear in this city. Which 2? They are, respectively, the enemy I am searching for, the 27 dead apostle ancestors' ex-seat, the Serpent of Akasha, the Infinite Reincarnator, Michael Roaval Damjong. And, for reasons unknown, the 10th rank 27 dead apostle ancestors, NRVNQSR Chaos, has also appeared in Japan. Only these 2 dead apostles? What's wrong? Are you actually complaining that it's too few? Hearing Roy's relaxed tone as if he were discussing groceries, Seal felt somewhat exasperated. You must understand that each of the 27 dead apostle ancestors is a dominant figure in the world of magecraft. Normally, even if the church wants to deal with one of them, it requires the deployment of the burial agency and many troops to suppress them. And now, 2 have appeared at once, and you're complaining that it's not enough? Do you think this is a grocery market? There are indeed some, but I have prepared too much this time. If only 2 dead apostle ancestors came, that would really be a waste. Sending Roa and his accomplices away is a matter of abundance. Abundance. Upon hearing this term, Seal couldn't help but wonder if this guy was ignorant or simply overconfident. She sighed slightly and continued, although these dead apostle ancestors are enemies, they are not necessarily Roa's accomplices. Roy raised an eyebrow. Why? I'm not entirely sure, but it seems that no one among the 27 dead apostle ancestors acknowledges Roa's identity, rather, they seem to be hunting him down. The ancestors that have come this time might not protect him, but more likely, they are there to witness how long it will take for him to be eliminated again. That would be interesting. However, my target is very clear. If they are merely witnesses and do not cause trouble, I won't go after them. But if any unwise dead apostle ancestors dares to obstruct my path. Suddenly, Roy's gaze turned to the back. Behind. Seal and Shiki followed Roy's eyes. The pair of black pupils had already transformed into icy blue, staring into the blood-red eyes of a row of crows perched on a street lamp, which had appeared there at some point. Quack. Then. Bang. As the crows attempted to take flight, the glass beside Roy shattered with a loud crash, and the mercury needles, formed from volumen hydrargyrum, swiftly pierced through these crows. This is the next scene. Seeing these bizarre crows being pierced simultaneously, Seal was the first to realize something was wrong and immediately leaped outside to check the situation. The customers inside the shop panicked due to the sudden shattering of the glass, and the store owner was momentarily stunned. After leisurely finishing his coffee, Roy glanced at Shiki, nodded slightly, and then took a stack of euros out of his pocket, placing them on the table before walking out together. NRVNQSR chaos, so he actually came knocking on the door himself. This saves me some trouble. He patted Shiki's head and asked, Shiki, get ready for battle. Enemies are coming. Chapter 119, 119 Sleeping Princess. How bold, to dare use familiars to openly test us like this. In a small alleyway, Roy stood over the corpses of several pitch-black beasts whose heads he had pierced. He fell into brief contemplation. He was puzzled by NRVNQSR Chaos's reckless probing. Normally, this kind of behavior would be considered a blatant provocation. What's going on? Could it be that after seeing me interact with Seal from the burial agency, he assumed I'm an ally sent by the Holy Church? Sending out so many black beasts at once. Is he trying to eliminate me, or simply test my strength? All dealt with. On the other side, Shiki, slightly out of breath, sheathed her dagger and surveyed the creatures she had just finished off. They were the corpses of several black hounds, which she had precisely dismembered. Now, they had been reduced to scattered pieces, lying in a pool of blood on the ground. Over the past year, through her efforts, Shiki had reached a level where she could easily dispatch these ordinary monsters. When Roy tried to help after dealing with his own opponents, she refused. Using her mystic eyes of death perception combined with reinforcement magecraft, she swiftly eliminated the beasts. Each strike cleaved their lines of death with precision, and her efficiency surprised even Roy. She had truly become accustomed to battle. She had grown so much. After slaying the monsters, an uncontrollable sense of joy appeared on Shiki's face. Even though the beasts were defeated, that sense of joy didn't fade. Instead, it grew even more intense. For some reason, I suddenly feel like slicing something up. This thought surfaced in her mind, and her body began to tremble uncontrollably. Shiki, what's wrong? Roy finally noticed something amiss. He quickly turned his head and looked at the silent Shiki beside him, witnessing a chilling scene. She was smiling. A smile that wasn't ordinary. It wasn't a happy smile, nor was it a troubled one. It was a terrifying smile. Sweat seeped from her forehead, dampening her bangs. Her lips curled into a slight grin. Though the angle wasn't extreme, it sent a shiver down Roy's spine. She lowered her head, crouching down as she reached out with her dagger towards the freshly killed corpse, her eyes filled with excitement. Shiki, stop. Roy swiftly turned and tightly grasped her outstretched hand, his expression serious. For a moment, his own ice-blue mystic eyes, which resembled her mystic eyes of death perception, flared as he gazed into her frenzied eyes. Ah! As soon as her arm was grabbed, Shiki snapped out of it. She dropped the dagger and stepped back several times, looking lost and bewildered. What just happened to me? Killing impulse. Roy furrowed his brows slightly. Your old problem again. I thought with all the training you've gone through, you'd be able to suppress it by now. Looks like I was too naive. Roy had some inkling of what had just happened to her. He had read records in the Ryougi family's ancient texts regarding demon hunter families. Though Shiki and her alternate personality, Shiki, had reached a balance, and Shiki could cut off Shiki whenever she wished, the killing impulse should have been suppressed. However, as a demon hunter by blood, Shiki was still affected by the sight of non-human blood, triggering the ancestral memory within her bloodline, which reignited her killing impulse unconsciously. This was what led to her brief rampage. Sorry. Shiki lowered her head, and without her usual stubbornness, she rarely expressed such an apology to Roy. You. Seeing her suddenly act so obediently, Roy was a bit taken aback. Though he didn't want her to face danger, Shiki's adventurous nature couldn't be suppressed. She wasn't someone who could sit still, she enjoyed following him on dangerous ventures. The timeline of this world had already changed significantly. When Roy went back and brought Tuko with him, leaving Kuchilane behind to watch over Mifune City, he still had doubts about Kuchilane's reliability. He wasn't comfortable leaving Shiki alone in the city. He thought that with his own strength, as long as Shiki stayed by his side, there wouldn't be any problems. But her true nature and bloodline still caused various unforeseen situations, even in Misaki Town. When faced with the black hounds surrounding her, instead of feeling fear, she would excitedly pull out her dagger and want to try her hand at fighting them. Of course, Roy knew the master of these beasts. NRVNQSR Chaos. The troublesome figure ranked 10th among the dead apostle ancestors, as Seal had mentioned, with incredible strength. He wasn't a dead apostle who was turned by another but someone who transformed himself into one through magical research. This man was the first boss in Tsukihime, formidable and difficult to deal with. Before arriving, Roy had already gathered intelligence on the dead apostle ancestors, so he knew the basics of NRVNQSR Chaos. His real name was Fabro Rowan, a special magus from the Wandering Sea, one of the Mages Association's branches. The church gave him the name Chaos. Inside his body resided a special reality marble called Lair of the Beast King, containing 666 beasts. No physical or magical attack could kill him. That was why, while his destructive power wasn't the most terrifying, he was incredibly difficult to deal with. To defeat him, either all 666 beasts had to be destroyed at once, or the mystic eyes of death perception had to be used to kill him. Roy recalled that, in the original timeline, NRVNQSR Chaos was killed by Shiki Tano's mystic eyes of death perception. Shiki also possessed the mystic eyes of death perception, and hers were even stronger than Shiki Tano's, making her the ideal choice to face him. If NRVNQSR Chaos dragged them into his reality marble, there was no telling how long it would take to deal with him. When Roy explained this to Shiki, her face lit up with rare excitement. She immediately agreed and insisted that this enemy must be hers to defeat. Though she had already cut down countless artificial ghosts and training puppets, she had never fought a non-human creature like this. Now that such a fitting opponent had appeared, how could she let the opportunity slip by? Moreover, this time, she would finally fight side by side with him. Of course, she wouldn't miss this chance. Seeing her excited expression, Roy felt a mix of helplessness and concern. Even with the mystic eyes of death perception and after receiving his training, Shiki was still human at her core, though the terrifying third personality remained dormant within her. Roy couldn't risk her safety, betting on whether that void Shiki personality would intervene. So, he had to take extra precautions. Stay still, Shiki. Roy reached into his chest with his left hand and pulled out Avalon, which had been lent to him by Artoria. He then embedded it into Shiki's body. What is this? Shiki curiously asked, sensing the strange object that Roy had just placed inside her. Avalon, it's a precious item that can protect you. It's a treasure lent to me by a very important companion. Only with this can I barely feel at ease. And what about you? If you give this to me, what will you use? I don't need Avalon's protection. Roy shook his head and answered, my own strength is more than sufficient. No matter what kind of enemy it is, I can handle it. For me, it's just an optional defensive tool at best. Compared to me, you're more suited to carry it. As he spoke, he set up the activation magecraft formula and method, finally feeling relieved. However, after finishing, he glanced at Shiki deeply and sighed, with a slight tone of guilt. Sorry, Shiki, for dragging you along to fight against such a monster. What nonsense are you saying? Wasn't it me who asked to join the battle? But if I hadn't taken you and Tako away from Misaki Town, we wouldn't have encountered NRVNQSR Chaos Beasts, and you wouldn't have. Idiot. Shiki interrupted Roy. You don't need to apologize. Some things are bound to happen sooner or later. Even if it didn't happen today, it would happen tomorrow or later. It's just a matter of time. Spinning the knife in her hand, Shiki looked at Roy's worried expression and said with some exasperation. I'm not a child. Do you really need to worry so much? Do you plan to protect me for the rest of my life? If you'd like. What did you say? Nothing. Roy shook his head, feeling helpless. Do you realize how serious your condition was just now? Of course I do. But I can assure you, even if you hadn't stopped me, I would have snapped out of it at the last moment. Shiki spoke with certainty. During that abnormal state, she too heard a soft whisper, and that gentle voice helped calm her turbulent emotions. Roy sighed softly and fell silent. But sending a child to face a centuries-old monster is still something to worry about. But I'm already in middle school, not a child anymore. Shiki retorted with dissatisfaction, and I'm also a magus, or rather, a demon hunter. Age isn't what limits me. Doesn't that saying go, with great power comes great responsibility? Since I've encountered an enemy suited for me, I should be the one to fight. This is the path I've chosen, and even if I die one day, I don't mind. Spider-Man, huh? With great power comes great responsibility. That's not exactly a reasonable saying. I think you're more of a mischievous kid. Roy asked seriously, are you really intent on facing the dead apostle ancestor with me? Of course. cutting down immortal beings and fighting alongside you. If I missed out on such an exciting experience, I'd regret it for a long time. Shiki nodded firmly. That really gives me a headache. If I were a proper guardian, facing such a dire situation, I'd probably lock you up. Would you do that? No. Roy sighed and replied, because I know you wouldn't stay put. Even if I refused, you'd find a way to involve yourself in something dangerous. That would only backfire. It's better to keep you in my sight so I can protect you more easily. Oh, you really know me well. Shiki raised an eyebrow. While I can allow you to fight alongside me, you have to promise me this. Be extra careful. If you encounter any danger, call for my help immediately. Don't try to be a hero. Can you do that? I promise. Seeing Roy's serious gaze, Shiki solemnly nodded in agreement. Since Tuko has returned, go to her and adjust your condition. Get familiar with the combat techniques of the mystic eyes of death perception. Before long, I'll personally evaluate how much you've improved. If you're not qualified, don't blame me for rejecting you, okay? Of course, I won't disappoint you. With Roy finally agreeing, Shiki smiled and readily accepted. She then declined his offer to escort her and left alone. Be careful. Although she refused his company, out of concern, Roy still called Tuko, asking her to meet up with Shiki along the way. After the recent attack by NRVNQSR Chaos Beasts, Roy had become more vigilant about his surroundings. Even though he knew that Shiki was far from being a weak woman. With her mystic eyes of death perception, her mithril dagger, and now with Avalon protecting her, not even NRVNQSR Chaos himself could get the upper hand against her. So, even in this city where dead apostles roam, she could easily take care of herself. But concern was still necessary. He wouldn't let anyone around him face threats. With Shiki's situation arranged, it was time to move on to his next task. The first priority was to find the princess who had drawn all these dead apostle ancestors here. Thinking of this, Roy dialed Amiya Giritsugu's number. Dusk near a cheap apartment in Misaki Town. Roy, using the rough location provided by Amiya Giritsugu, was searching door to door for Arcuade's whereabouts. Though Arcuade, the White Princess, appeared somewhat clueless due to her long life in the Millennium Castle and lack of common sense, her intelligence was by no means lacking. After all, after living for so many years, even a dog would have gained some wisdom, let alone the princess of the dead apostles. At the very least, her ability to hide her tracks was highly refined. How else could she have evaded so many dead apostles and dead apostle ancestors for such a long time? However, despite her caution, there were still flaws in her approach. Having spent so much time in the unchanging barrier of the Millennium Castle, it was clear that Arcuade hadn't fully grasped modern technology. She believed that erasing her tracks and avoiding familiar detection would be enough to hide effectively. Such tricks might fool the dead apostles and magi who hadn't kept up with the times, but they were useless against someone like Amiya Giritsugu, a specialist in modern technology. What she didn't expect was that this was now a highly developed modern society.